New Advanced Market Leader, Course Book, 3rd edition, by Ivona Dubitska and Margaret O'Keefe. Published by Pearson Longman. Unit 1, First Impressions, Track 1.
People say the first 2 minutes of a presentation are the hardest part. What advice do you give to presenters?
I think, yes, maybe even less than 2 minutes, actually, to make that vital first impression. And I think I would want to work with my client to try and break that down a little bit into what's really going on with the audience, and indeed what happens when we communicate with people. A lot is based on body language, non-verbal communication. That may be as much as 60 to, some people say even 90% of our communication is non-verbal communication, which is rather an amazing statistic. But certainly we do take in impressions from the sound of the person's voice, their facial expression, for example, their posture, the way in which they use the room, the space that they have. All of those things combine, really, the way they dress. We will put together a composite picture. Usually these messages are not viewed independently. They're usually seen as clusters of behaviour. And we will build up an image very, very quickly of who we think that person is and what they are and who they are, before we really even take in much of what they've got to say, although, of course, those first few words are also essential.
Unit 1, First Impressions, Track 2.
We think about posture, for example, the way one stands, the way in which you can be upright but not rigid, the way you take charge of the space, for example, rather than hiding behind a table or a lectern. You try to get that direct contact with your audience. A problem comes, of course, with PowerPoint, where people want to stay near their laptop to change the slides, and obviously the message is very simple: just use a remote and that will liberate you from your laptop. But also the way that we use our eye contact to scan the room rather than just look at the first few rows, so that everybody feels as though there's a conversation going on, no matter how far back they are or whether they're at the sides of the room. The way in which we use modulation in our voices, you know, the kind of intonation that we use. There is also sometimes perhaps a tendency to want to shout in order to be heard in a large room. If there's a microphone, try it out before the audience arrives. See how your voice sounds. Get that feel for how you're going to sound, how you're going to come across, and modulate your voice accordingly. But also remember how important intonation is. English is the language of Shakespeare, after all, so we have that capacity to produce all sorts of light and dark shades in our voices that add interest and get the audience really paying attention. And I think also we need to think very carefully about how we control our gestures. Certainly all of us have perhaps particular mannerisms that we might use, but you know, the flicking of the hair, or the nervous fidgeting with a bracelet or a ring, or the constant adjustment of the suit jacket, or the nervous cough can become a distraction to the audience. And all of that can happen in the first minute or so. A minute is a long time when you're speaking.
Unit 1, First Impressions, Track 3. Conversation 1.
Oh, excuse me, could you do me a favour and pass the milk jug?
Yes, of course. Here you are.
So, what did you think of the last presentation?
Great, wasn't it? I always enjoy her talks, don't you?
Yeah, she really knows how to captivate an audience, doesn't she? But it wasn't exactly what I was expecting.
No? Why's that?
Well, I thought there was going to be a panel discussion at the end.
Oh, I think that's coming up after the coffee break.
Oh, I see. And what do you think of the conference so far?
Oh, not bad. Fewer people than last year, aren't there?
Yes, it must be the venue. Copenhagen isn't exactly the cheapest city to get to, is it?
No, that's true. Do you mind me asking where you're from?
Oh, I'm from the UK, Birmingham.
Oh.
And yourself?
I'm Danish.
Really? Oh, Oh, sorry, I didn't realise.
No, that's all right. Copenhagen is expensive, I know.
Well, you speak excellent English, if you don't mind me saying.
Thanks. No, actually, my sister's doing research at Cambridge University. So, I visit her often.
Wow, really?
My name is Erik, by the way.
Nice to meet you, Erik. I'm Yasmin.
Oh, I think we're starting again. Shall we go through?
Sure, yeah.
Unit 1, First Impressions, Track 4. Conversation 2.
That's a great calling card, if you don't mind me saying.
Oh, thanks. Our company thought these cute figures would get us noticed at conferences.
Great idea. I think I'll ask for one when I get back.
They're certainly eye-catching, but they're a bit bulky to carry around, you know?
Do you mind if I take a look at one?
Sure, here you go.
Thanks. That's great. Valerie... Sorry, how do you say your name?
It's Valerie Carlisle from Lennox, the pharmaceutical division.
And how's business in your part of the world, Valerie?
Oh, just call me Val. Not bad. Sales have picked up again in the U.S.
So I hear. That must be a relief. Oh, look. Have you seen the menu for dinner this evening?
Yes, but I didn't enjoy the dinner very much last night. Did you?
Well, it's always good to try some of the local dishes. But frankly, I'm not too keen on very rich food.
I know what you mean. Neither am I.
I don't suppose you know of any good places to eat near here, do you?
It's funny you should say that. I think my colleague might. Excuse me, Tony, did the hotel clerk recommend somewhere to eat out?
Hang on a sec. I think I have a card here somewhere. Yeah, the Oslo Fish Bar. They do great, fish, apparently.
Sounds perfect. Do you want to eat there this evening? Oh, sorry, I didn't catch your name.
It's Sergei.
Hi, Sergey. As you know, I'm Val, and this is Tony.
Good to meet you, Val. Tony, here is my business card.
Wow, that's an impressive name. How do you say it?
Actually, it's Lyushenko. But just call me Sergei.
Okay, Sergey. Good talking to you. Oh, excuse me, but I've just seen a friend. I'll see you later, hopefully.
Sure.
Hi, Petra. How are you?
So, you're based in St. Petersburg?
That's right.
I was there not so long ago, actually, for the medical fair.
Really? I thought your face looked familiar. Didn't you give a talk on medical aid in developing countries? You got a standing ovation, if I remember rightly.
Well, I think a few people stood up, but they were mostly colleagues. Anyway, would you like to join us for dinner tonight, Sergei?
Well, that's very kind of you. Thanks. Actually, do you mind if I invite one of my team?
No, not at all. The more the merrier.
That will be great. Excuse me a moment, Tony. I'm afraid I have to make a quick call.
Oh, Tony, I don't think you've met Petra from the Hamburg office, have you?
Ah, so you're the famous Petra.
Tony. Petra, this is Dr. Anthony Clark.
It's great to meet you at last, Petra.
Unit 1, First Impressions, Track 5.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for coming this evening. I'm sure you'll agree we've enjoyed good food, good company, and excellent wine. The question I've been asked most this evening is, when did you first get involved with Logistaid? The answer's simple. When I was a young student of engineering, I decided to take a gap year, a year out to travel the world. And the second question I get asked is why? And what I say is, the thing that impressed me most about the world at that time wasn't Venice or the Sydney Opera House. It wasn't the Taj Mahal or the Statue of Liberty or even the ancient pyramids of Egypt. These, of course, are all brilliant tributes to our capacity for creativity and construction. And what impressed me most of all was that despite our wonderful ability to design and build magnificent monuments and beautiful cities, there were still many, many people in the world without a roof over their heads, sick people without a local hospital, and children without a school. So that was why I decided to get involved with Logistaid and do something about it. I'd like to stand here and tell you about all the good work that we've done at Logistaid. I'd like to stand here and tell you about the number of refugees we've helped to rehouse, or the number of vaccinations we've managed to give, or the number of teachers we've managed to send out to remote areas to educate enthusiastic kids. But I won't. That would defeat the purpose of tonight's gala dinner. The reason I am here tonight, the reason you have been invited here tonight, is because there are still many parts of the world where people live without decent housing, where people don't have access to basic medical treatment, and where children still can't go to school because one doesn't exist. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask you, when did you get involved with Logistaid? And I'd like to hear you say, it was tonight, here at our first celebrity gala dinner, rubbing shoulders with some of the country's most distinguished public figures, surrounded by some of society's most influential movers and shakers. Well, let's see you moving and shaking now. Let's see you get involved. Let's see how you can help us to help them. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
Unit 2. Training. Track 6.
What are apprenticeships and why are they useful?
An apprentice is a young person training at an office or in a factory or in a warehouse. And they're useful because the employers hopefully train them to become permanent employees. They will then show loyalty to the company because they've been trained by the company. And overall, it gives the young apprentice a focus in life. They get an allowance, certainly in Germany, a monthly allowance to keep them going. So overall, certainly we in German industry feel the whole idea of apprenticeships is a worthwhile exercise for both employers and for the young apprentices.
Unit 2. Training. Track 7.
Can you give us some examples of how apprenticeships work in Germany?
Apprentices in Germany are usually school leavers aged 16. And about 60% of all school leavers aged 16 become apprentice. The rest goes into higher education, either into colleges or into universities. So the majority become apprentices. Most of them want to go into well-known companies like BMW, Mercedes, Siemens. Once they get a training job or employment as an apprentice, they then sign an employment contract which tells them how many hours they have to work, how long the employment period is. Usually 2 years. It can extend to 3.5 years. And then it sets down how much allowances the company pays them. And they spend usually 3 to 4 days in the company and 1 to 2 days in a vocational school, which is usually in the same place, town or city.
How does your organisation promote apprenticeships in the UK?
There's no solid training program for all apprentices right across the UK, which we have in Germany. We have a training act. We have 340 recognized skills in Germany, from apprentices in offices to apprentices in a factory on the conveyor belt, and we have a recognized, so to speak, profession, skills profession, which we are very proud of. We have 2 labels we are proud of in industry: trained in Germany and made in Germany. And we would like, all of us in German industry in the UK, would like to have the dual training system as described. And we are now working with the government here on some sort of system which is similar to our dual training system.
Unit 2. Training. Tracks 8 to 11. Brendan.
I initially spent 2 days' work experience while still at school, and then a further week at an electronics company when I was 16 years old. It was then that I decided to pursue an apprenticeship. I started working in 1992 as an apprentice technician. I was one of the first interns on the newly established apprentice scheme. I then spent 4 years in the workshop completing the apprenticeship, and 2 more years working in the same company as a qualified technician. Since then, I've taken on numerous roles across different areas of the organisation, including technical service, parts, marketing, sales, and the product department in Munich. What advice would I give to people starting out? Challenge yourself. Don't be afraid to take risks. And more importantly, do something you'll enjoy and believe in. I always get a buzz out of playing with a new technology.
Falak.
It was pure chance. I'd just finished my GCSEs and had enrolled into college to start studying for A-levels and take the normal degree route, hoping I would find a job to do with engineering when I'd finished. But then I saw an ad in an aeronautical magazine about apprenticeships at Rolls-Royce. At first, my parents were worried that I'd be missing out on a decent education, going off to work when I'd just turned 16. But I'd be going to college, getting good qualifications and spending time working on planes, all whilst being paid. I completed my apprenticeship in 2001. I then progressed to senior technician, and I'm now a master technician. The thing I find most rewarding is the satisfaction of knowing that you fixed something. I love working at the head office because I'm involved in R&D, research and development and testing. I also get to work on some special models. It's just so innovative and high-tech. If you want to work in the aeronautical industry, you have to aim high and go for it. Having a lot of enthusiasm is important too, and will take you far.
Rachel.
After I left school with 4 A-levels, I went to do a degree in French with business studies at York University. My university studies also included a 12-month placement working for a Swiss drinks company in their research and technology department in Zurich. After graduating in 2002, I joined the UK graduate programme. What's my advice? I'd say you need to have passion for what you do, as well as having a good understanding of what's going on in the marketplace. This applies to anything you want to do, not just in the food and beverages industry. I think it's important to explore all avenues open to you. You need to do lots of research to find out what options are available to you before you can make your mind up.
Marika.
I've just finished studying for a linguistics degree at Madrid University. I speak English and Spanish as well as German. Tomorrow I've got an interview lined up with an international marketing company here in Madrid for a work placement, an internship for the summer. It's only for 3 months and I'm not sure how much I'll get paid yet. Interns back home get paid on average about €500 per month, which is quite good really. But I'm prepared to accept this internship for less. I'm also thinking about doing a master's degree in marketing, so I'll ask them about future prospects, training and job opportunities. Perhaps they might offer me a part-time job in the afternoons while I'm studying next year. I haven't got a clue about marketing, but I'm willing to learn, and I hope they don't expect me just to make photocopies and answer the phone. I think there are about 25 applicants for this post, so any advice would be welcome.
Unit 2. Training. Track 12.
Human Resources, Mel van der Horst speaking.
Oh, hello, this is Naomi Taylor. I'm coming to the staff induction day this Thursday.
Sorry, could you give me your name again?
Yes, it's Naomi Taylor. I've just started working at the Richmond office.
Hello, Miss Taylor. How can I help you?
Well, I'm coming to head office for the induction course on, Thursday. And I don't know what time it starts or even which room to go to.
So you didn't receive the programme we emailed you?
Well, no, not exactly. I think I might have deleted your email. Sorry.
Not to worry. I'll give you the details now. It starts at 9:30 in meeting room B15.
OK, can I just check that? Did you say 9:30?
Yes, that's right. But get here a bit earlier to sign in at reception and get your security pass and things.
Mm-hmm. And the room was,
Meeting room B15. Just ask at reception. They'll give you directions.
So, that's B15. Thanks. And it doesn't matter if I haven't got a copy of the programme?
No, don't worry. Look, I'll email you another one now, and I'll bring some extra copies on Thursday.
Oh, thank you very much.
Can I help you with anything else?
No, you've been really helpful. Thanks.
See you on Thursday, Miss Taylor. Bye-bye.
Oh, bye. Thanks.
Unit 2. Training. Track 13.
Human Resources, Mel van der Horst speaking.
Hi Mel, it's Pierre in the reception. I'm very sorry, but there is a problem with the room bookings for Thursday. It looks like B15 is double booked.
Oh, what? You mean we can't have that room at all?
No, what I meant was we can't really ask the CEO to shift her meeting, but it's only occupied till 11. You could have it afterwards.
After 11. What about the other meeting rooms?
Well, there's nothing free all day. We could put you in B13 or C2 in the morning.
C2's the one next to the vending machines on the 3rd floor, right?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, I think it's a slightly smaller room than B13, isn't it? We're going to need the space.
Look, I'm not sure which room would be better for you. Why don't you come down to reception, get the keys to both, and you can see for yourself?
No thanks. I'm sure B13 will be fine for a few hours.
Do you want to book it till 11 then?
No, better put us down till noon, in case the CEO's meeting overruns.
Okay, I'll put you in B13 from 9 to midday and B15 for the rest of the day. Thanks, Mel, for being so understanding.
Don't mention it. One thing, though, I'll email the people who are coming about the change, but they might not all read my message. Could you make sure that they know where to go when they arrive on Thursday morning?
Sure, Mel. I'll tell the others and leave a note in reception with the attendance list.
Thank you, Pierre.
Unit 2. Training. Tracks 14 to 17. Amy Cheng.
I've been working for C&R for over 2 years now. The training programme for new graduates in the first year was one of the main reasons why I wanted to work here. It's famous throughout the industry, and I can see why now. The training and support is first rate. It helped me to build up confidence in key skills like customer service and sales techniques before I went into the field to put it into practice. The thing is that the training just sort of stopped after that. I mean, there are a lot of training modules on the intranet, but I'd really like to take some ownership of my learning and develop particular skills. I'd be interested in attending a leadership course, for instance.
Charlie Turner.
I've got over 20 years of sales experience, so there's not much you can teach me about selling. And I've got a good relationship with my customers. We always have a good laugh. I know they talk about lifelong learning these days, but when are you supposed to find the time if you've got a full-time job and a family? My biggest problem is the technology. I can't keep up with all these new applications and software, and the training is always so ad hoc and informal. It seems as soon as I get used to something, they go and change the processes again. It's also a struggle to keep up with all the new products they keep launching. To be honest, I do very well just selling the old favourites. Why change for the sake of it?
Kamal Satinder.
I'd like some help with my sales team. Since C&R bought out a rival company, Kelman Shavers, and the sales teams merged, I've been trying to develop a culture of cooperation and teamwork, but I get the feeling the teams aren't integrating well. It's a bit hard when you put two rival teams of aggressive sales reps together. I know it's difficult for them to adapt to working with people who used to work for the competition, and there's sometimes a distinct, tension in the air. It could become a problem for staff motivation and morale. I wonder if there's some way to accelerate the whole team-building process and get them to be externally competitive but internally cooperative, as they say.
Jessica Armstrong.
Well, one major challenge we're facing is the pace of innovation in consumer goods. There are just more and more new products coming out. I know we need to stay ahead of the competition, so the sales reps have to be able to familiarise themselves quickly with new products without losing too much valuable time in the field. They need to be out there selling, not listening to product presentations all day. Oh, and another issue is, don't get me wrong, I'm proud to manage some really experienced sales reps, but I've noticed a few of them could do with updating their skills. In particular, customer awareness training. Something that will help them be better listeners and become a bit more, responsive to customers' needs and proactive in their approach to selling.
Unit 3. Energy. Track 18.
Can you tell us what your company does?
New Energy Finance is an international company that provides news, data and deep analysis on all sectors of clean energy. So that's everything from wind and solar, small hydro, up to 50 megawatts, marine, so wave and tidal, geothermal, and then other low carbon technologies like carbon capture and storage and energy efficiency. And we also look at the carbon markets in great detail and what the carbon price is going to be in the future. On the data side, we put together data on all the deals and projects in the world, and that enables us to calculate, for instance, that there was $155 billion invested in clean energy worldwide in 2008. And in analysis, we look at things like what happens if the gas price falls. Does that deter people from investing in renewable energy, or will that have more effect, for instance, on coal and nuclear than it will on renewable energy?
Unit 3. Energy. Track 19.
Which do you think will be the most viable alternative energy supply?
Well, right now the most mature of the main clean energy sectors is wind, because the technologies have basically been standardised for 20, 25, 30 years. The three-bladed turbine, people know exactly how much it costs to generate power with that technology. They know where the best geographical locations are to base wind farms. So it's regarded as a mature technology and often an alternative to things like gas and coal. But I think in the long term, solar is the clean energy technology will probably get the widest uptake, both putting plants in places like deserts and very sunny areas, taking advantage of land that hasn't got a lot of other use, but also micro-generation, people putting solar panels on roofs. Once the technology comes down enough, it's not there yet, but once it comes down enough, then it'll be something that people do routinely as a way of actually dealing with some of their power needs during the course of the year, and solar panels will have a huge market for that.
Unit 3. Energy. Track 20.
Do you think carbon emissions are a cause for concern? I mean, the general public seems to be more concerned about other social and economic issues at the moment.
Yes, I do think it's a major cause for concern, and it's vital we reduce carbon emissions. It's one of the main causes of global warming. I think the goal of the world's governments should be to prevent the Earth's temperature from increasing. The real question, of course, is how we go about doing that
and whether people are prepared to consume less energy and stop wasting it. After all, it was the environmentalist Paul Ehrlich who said, "We're not running out of fossil fuels, we're running out of environment."
What role can business play in the reduction of CO2 emissions?
Well, I think the role of business, and especially manufacturing companies, is to reduce energy consumption and to use greener production processes, not only involving solar and wind energy, but also hydrogen, fuel cell technology and so on, and that way cut down on CO2 emissions. But it's complicated, and it's going to take time and money to get certain industries to swap from fossil fuels, oil and gas, to a viable alternative.
What do you think the government can do to promote the use of clean energy?
Well, I think the government should invest more in green products like hydrogen-powered or electric cars. As a matter of fact, I've already driven a hydrogen-powered car myself. It works. But I realize we might have to wait another 5 years or so before we see these kinds of green cars on the road in any significant number. And the government should be leading by example, using renewable energy, particularly photovoltaic energy, that is, using solar panels to heat public buildings, schools and offices, that kind of thing.
Unit 3. Energy. Track 21.
Do you think the government should charge a carbon tax?
A carbon tax? What do you mean exactly?
Well, whether companies and individual citizens should pay some kind of carbon tax in proportion to the amount of carbon they use to offset carbon emissions.
No, I don't think so. But it could be voluntary. In the same way, when you book a flight with certain airlines, you can choose to pay carbon offset or not. A carbon tax wouldn't be at all popular here in the UK, although I do think more manufacturing companies could make regular donations to offset their carbon emissions.
Do you think the government should charge taxpayers a carbon tax?
No, not if it's just another tax. I think it'll fail. But if it's a tax where it makes industry and people really behave differently, that's all to the good. Even so, I think it should come with some kind of tax deduction or tax relief elsewhere, especially for new businesses, so that they don't end up paying higher taxes.
How do you think developing countries should reduce their carbon emissions?
Firstly, I think the richer countries should stop making these demands on developing countries. People in developing countries have just the same rights to basic energy as we have. You know, many people in the developing world still don't have access to piped gas and electricity. They cook over wood fires, they don't have tractors to farm the land, and they walk or cycle to work. Secondly, richer countries should help developing countries obtain their basic energy needs at the lowest possible price and in the greenest possible way. Yes, China and India need to adopt national targets for reducing carbon emissions. I understand China has already moved in this direction, and India is also considering such a move. So all countries should have international targets for reducing carbon emissions, not just developing ones.
Would you live in the same area as a wind farm?
Yes, if the wind turbines were located in the right position without damaging the local environment, although I'd also have solar panels on my house.
Well, the countryside where I live is very picturesque, so I can see how some locals might object to it. But there is very high unemployment, so if it brought jobs and improved services to the area, why not?
The trouble with wind power is that although it's a clean energy, some people don't want turbines in their local area because, well, they obviously spoil the scenery. But it's now typical in many parts of the US and Europe for landowners to lease their land to wind energy developers, and there are a few complaints. At the end of the day, it's certainly preferable to living next door to a nuclear power station.
Unit 3. Energy. Track 22.
Right. As you know, there's been an oil spill at one of our refineries in the Philippines.
Do you know what happened exactly?
Well, we don't have all the details yet, but it looks like there was a leak in an underground pipeline. It turned out to be a minor one, and it was plugged within hours. It seems a few thousand litres apparently seeped out of a damaged pipeline. We don't know what caused the leak yet, so I'd like your take on this, please. What's the best course of action?
Would it be an idea to close the refinery for a while until we've conducted a full investigation?
Well, I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry, Anna, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. Where was I? Yes, I'm not entirely sure we want to disrupt production at this stage. The leak has been dealt with, so there's no immediate issue. Caroline, what were you going to say?
Well, I'd say we should think it through a bit more. Yes, there was another spillage a month and a half ago at the same refinery, so we do have to look into what's going on there urgently. That said, I don't think we should rush into a decision until we have all the facts.
Yes, that's right. Our priorities are to ensure people's safety and to minimise any impact on the environment and property. However, closing the refinery, even for a short time, would be a costly solution. Here's a suggestion. We could set up an investigation team first and then act according to their findings.
Sounds reasonable to me.
Yes, me too.
The team needs to work quickly, though. I'm really concerned that another incident may not be so minor, and we just can't afford any more bad publicity.
Very true, Tony. Would you like to lead the investigation?
Me? Oh, well, yes, sure.
Unit 3. Energy. Track 23.
There is.
Oh, great.
Okay, guys.
Yeah,
everybody, let's get down to business.
Mm-hmm.
Did you all get a chance to read the latest reports I sent you?
Yeah, some of it. There was kind of a lot of stuff there.
Right. I'd really like your input on new ideas for projects, and it would be good if we could make some decisions today.
Well, I'd say we've implemented most of the low-cost quick fixes, and we have to start looking at longer-term solutions now. But that'll cost money.
Bill's right. The low-hanging fruit is long gone. We've reduced our lighting bills and saved on office costs by powering down our equipment. All our new printers and copiers can be set to standby mode after 20 minutes of non-use. But it'll be expensive to replace all the old equipment in one go. Maybe it's better to phase things out.
Perhaps. We could look at reducing the amount of equipment we have in the offices as well. I mean, does everyone need a printer by their desk?
Well, no, but there might be some resistance from people.
How so?
Well, they might feel we're trying to take away entitlements. Who gets to have their own printer and who doesn't?
Oh, yeah.
Employees might find it inconvenient.
I take your point. Some employees might feel left out of the decision-making, and we want to figure out some ways to get them all on board. Make energy efficiency a priority for everyone.
Well, we can try.
Bill, what kind of long-term solutions did you have in mind?
Well, I hear that some companies now have all the building systems centrally controlled. And there are sensors to monitor and regulate office lighting, air conditioning, and pretty much anything that uses electricity. One company alone has managed to reduce electricity use per person by 35%, and natural gas use by 40%.
Really? That sounds cool. I wonder if we could do something similar. The potential cost savings should convince the management team that it's a good investment.
I agree. Another idea is to start buying some of our energy from renewable sources.
Do you know which renewable energies we can buy?
No, but I can look into it.
Okay, thanks, Rajiv. All right, let's go over what we've said so far. So we've agreed that we'll look at reducing...
Working Across Cultures 1. International Presentations. Tracks 24 to 26. Speaker 1.
Last week, I was in Geneva giving a talk to some of our company executives from all over the world. And, you simply can't take anything for granted in that situation. Speaking with an international audience made me realize just how much slang I use to explain myself. I've always felt that it gives me a casual style that I think is fun and adds a personal touch. And it always goes down well here in the States. But after seeing their faces, I realized just how inappropriate and insensitive it is for those who don't get what I'm saying. It also means that I've lost a valuable opportunity to get my message across. Next time I have to do that again, I'm definitely going to simplify my language and try to avoid words and expressions that might mean nothing to my listeners. But it's actually very hard for me to know when I'm using slang. So I'll just have to remember to schedule some time with one of my international colleagues to help me review my talk.
Speaker 2.
One valuable lesson I've learned is that people around the world respond differently to presentations. I remember once I was in Japan and I noticed some people in the audience were closing their eyes and nodding their head up and down slightly. I thought, what have I done wrong? But later someone told me that it's a sign of concentration. Then again, who knows? Maybe I really was putting them to sleep. Then there is the level of interaction with the audience. In North America and the UK, audiences will almost always ask me questions, but in Japan, people are more likely to be silent. And I used to think that clapping was a universal reaction at the end of a speech, but I found that in parts of Germany and Austria, people sitting around a table may knock on the table instead. It startled me the first time that it happened.
Speaker 3.
I've found that when I'm talking to an international group, people need more time to digest numbers and figures, especially when they're not native English speakers. I remember one time there was a confusion when I said 1 billion, which used to mean 1,000,000 million in the UK, with 12 noughts. But now everyone uses it to mean 1,000 million, and I only picked up on the misunderstanding much further down the road. I also find people are often unfamiliar with my pronunciation of names and places, like Levi's and Moscow. I've seen it throw some people and lead to a bit of a misunderstanding. My tips? I think using visuals can help compensate for these sorts of language problems. Also, if you ever have to use any foreign names, do some research on the pronunciation before running the risk of amusing, confusing, or offending other people.
Working Across Cultures 1. International Presentations. Track 27.
How do you begin preparing people to be international presenters?
Well, of course, it does depend very much on the individual client, what their own cultural background is, whether English is their first language or not, who their audience is likely to be, and of the objective, of course, of the presentation. But generally speaking, I suppose I would work through a series of 4 main components. There would be an introduction, a general introduction, to really explore what we mean by culture in the first place. What do we mean by cultural difference, the norms, the values, the basic assumptions of that culture, what's often referred to as the culture iceberg, the difference between what we can see and what is underlying. And we move on from there to thinking in more detail about what the expectations of this particular audience might be and what the expectations of the presenter might be. And how does the presenter, for example, establish credibility with the audience? What's the audience looking for? Are they interested in knowing about the presenter's expertise, perhaps? Does age, class, education, sex and dress matter? If so, to what extent? What about the listening styles of the audience? What does that particular culture prefer in terms of communication? Is it a culture that values the spoken word, the visual, or even the written word more in terms of communication? To what extent will the audience value and appreciate an interactive approach? Some audiences actually don't want the kind of interaction that Anglo-Saxons, for example, very often appreciate. What about humour? What about humour and whether it's considered appropriate for business at all? Sometimes it can be interpreted as being quite frivolous, even cynical sometimes. And yet, on the other hand, we often see it being used to create a relaxed atmosphere and diffuse tensions. So that's a big question. And I suppose also how to read the audience, how to read their body language, how to read their silence sometimes. Is that an appreciative silence or a bored silence? How to read their facial expressions, how to know the degree of formality. Here we have all sorts of ideas to think about. And lastly, and of course very importantly, what level of detail do they expect? Some cultures prefer to have a lot of detail, a lot of what's called context. Others, the Anglo-Saxon nations being a case in point, really appreciate presentations that are concise and get straight to the point. Then we move on to the third part of this awareness training session, which is thinking about the use of English as a global language, and trying to be aware that we need to make our English as transparent and culture neutral as possible. And then lastly, we move on to the typical presentation style of the client, so that that person is aware of their typical delivery techniques. Invariably, this will be somebody who has a lot of experience and knows what works well with a particular audience. But of course, as the audience changes, some of those techniques may need to be re-evaluated. What's successful in the home culture, where everybody understands the context, may not always work elsewhere, may need to be modified or adapted to suit the context.
Unit 4. Marketing. Track 28.
What is customer relationship management and why is it important?
Customer relationship management, or CRM as it's known for short, is really the whole collection of systems and processes that companies use to interact with customers. In some people's minds, CRM has been associated with software, and certainly the software that companies use to manage their interactions through email, telesales calling and so on is very important. But increasingly, I think we need to think about customer relationship management as being a much broader set of responsibilities for organisations, creating, if you like, customer-centric businesses where the customer is at the heart of everything that an organisation thinks and feels about its market. Certainly systematising the way in which we think about customers might be thought of as a little mechanical. When you're dealing with a mass market, where you're trying to record perhaps very important personal differences and preferences, using some kind of systematic piece of CRM software is very important to provide a consistent service to the customer.
Unit 4. Marketing. Track 29.
With so much competition in retail these days, how are companies managing to retain their customers?
I think there are several ways that are being used at the moment. The most obvious one is to invest in loyalty cards or loyalty marketing schemes. And we can think of companies like Tesco, which have invested a lot of money in their club card scheme over the last 10 to 15 years. This is a way of gathering intelligence about customers, their buying behaviour, and then using that to try and create promotions and offers which will better meet their needs and therefore encourage them to come back again and again. We can also see the companies investing more significantly in the customer value that their brand represents. In the longer term, that's a better bet because, again, if we can understand precisely why customers are using our brand and how important it is to them and invest in those aspects of it, then we have a better chance of retaining customers over the longer term. But we can also see, I think, companies investing in price promotion activity. And absolutely this retains customers whilst the price is low, but of course there is only ever one lowest cost provider. And the key issue for those companies is, can they retain that low cost position in the marketplace?
Unit 4. Marketing. Track 30.
How much data should companies have about their customers, and should we be concerned about privacy?
There's a lot of discussion about privacy and its relevance to customers, and given that more and more data is being collected by all sorts of organisations. Certainly the emails I get coming through every day from everyone from airlines through to banks to grocers and booksellers advertising things and knowing something about my buying behaviour can be quite concerning. Indeed, it's been suggested that we're all glass consumers, that companies can see through us and know exactly how we behave and how we think. On the one hand, that's concerning. On the other hand, in a sense, perhaps that helps companies to serve us better. One of the ways we can think about this is that there are three attitudes to privacy. There are the privacy fundamentalists who are desperately concerned about the amount and quality of information that is held about them by companies and really don't want that to continue and want that to be legislated against. We then see the privacy pragmatists who actually recognise, well, the reality is companies collect data about us, That's fine, we can live with that. It may even help us in terms of getting better offers in the long term. And then finally there are the privacy indifferents who actually couldn't care less about what information is collected about them and really often are very unaware of what is collected.
Unit 4. Marketing. Track 31. Presenter 1.
Hello, everyone. As you probably know, I'm Carol Hughes, and today I'm going to be talking about the principles of marketing. Marketing is too often confused with selling. Selling is only the tip of the marketing iceberg. What is unseen is the extensive market research and development of products, the challenge of pricing them right, of opening up distribution, and of letting the market know about the product. So, marketing is a far more complex process than selling. But what is marketing? According to marketing guru Philip Kotler, there are 5 key processes in marketing. First, there's opportunity identification. Second is new product development. Third, there's customer attraction. The 4th process is customer retention and loyalty building. And last but not least, order fulfillment. Now, you're probably wondering, what's the significance of all this? Well, Kotler would argue that a company that handles all of these processes well will probably be successful. But a company that fails at any one of these processes will not survive. Let's take a look at a couple of case studies so I can show you what...
Unit 4. Marketing. Track 32. Presenter 2.
You know, a funny thing happened to me the other day. I was looking for a present to buy for my wife. Don't laugh. I'm the kind of guy who remembers his wife's birthday. But I've been looking and looking, and I haven't been able to find anything on her wish list. Well, of course she gave me a list. And the sales assistant said, "There's something I'd like to show you, sir. Here. Have you seen this coat? It may look like an Armani. It may feel like an Armani. But if you look at the price tag, you'll see it costs a fraction of the price of an Armani."
Cool.
Anyway, I'm not here to tell you about my wife's new coat. I'm here to tell you how this new campaign is going to give us a competitive advantage. For instance, did you know that China's fashion market will probably grow to around $12.4 billion over the next 2 years?
Oh, that's huge.
I bet you didn't know that, did you?
No.
Unit 4. Marketing. Track 33. Presenter 1.
So, to go back to what I was saying earlier, even social media marketing, like, say, the Axe campaign, is taking the same old ideas and just adding new technology. So, Houston, we have an innovation problem. Marketers are pushing the same old buttons to sell more variations of the same old products. It's a negative-sum game. Think about it. Right, let's just go back to that slide. Now, we've seen how product variations increase cost without enlarging the overall market. And with increased competition, prices are pushed down, inviting more competitors such as supermarket low-cost home brands. This means consumers are just overloaded with more choice of very similar products. Clearly, we've got to do something different here. So, to sum up the key points, marketing needs to pull back from its focus on distribution, packaging, and communication, and refocus on helping create great new products that deliver distinctive value and make people's lives better. Then, it'll be easy to communicate that to prospective customers. And that's what I'd like you to do for your next assignment. Innovate. Work in groups and come up with a brand new product or service. Think about a product that will make your life easier.
Oh, sorry, folks, but that's all we have time for today. See you on Thursday.
Unit 4. Marketing. Track 34. Presenter 2.
Right then, let's take another look at those figures, shall we? If you look at this chart a moment, showing the projected figures for China's fashion market, you'll see we're talking about over 5 billion euros.
Wow.
That's a huge increase in growth, isn't it? It's a massive market that's there for the taking. We've got to produce quality sports clothing at competitive prices that both look good and feel good. Yes, the Chinese market is excellent at imitation, but if you can't beat them, join them. I'd like to quote the words of a journalist from the FT here. Customers may not always be right, but they certainly matter. And unless we can give them what our competitors can't, we have no business.
Yeah, true.
If there's just one thing I'd like you all to remember, it's focus on our customer base. Not by generating business in the short term, but by positioning ourselves for the future. And finally, I'd like to reveal our new marketing strapline. Here we go. I think you'll all agree that sums us up perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done.
Unit 4. Marketing. Track 35.
So, how are you doing with the recruitment, Emilio? Did you manage to get Vanessa Flores booked for our TV commercial?
Sorry, Jody. No can do.
Oh, no way. What happened?
She just went on an international tour. L.A., London, Madrid. But maybe it was for the best.
Oh, how's that?
Well, she'd been having boyfriend trouble. I figure she'd bring you bad publicity.
Oh, but I thought her and Kurt were going to settle down. What about the actress, Alinda something or other, the one who endorsed that cereals brand in Europe?
Elvira Olivas?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she would have been great. I spoke to her agent.
And?
Well, they started making noises about her wanting endorsement deals further away from home. I got a bad feeling about her. She'd be a real prima donna.
Oh, she's a big name, Emilio. She'd be calling the shots.
You mean she'd raise the fees and turn up late all the time? Nah, it wouldn't work.
So, who does that leave us with? Eddie, the Latin rapper?
Eddie's an interesting guy, and he's photogenic.
But?
Jody, let's face it. He's pushing 40.
Oh, I guess so. Okay, who do we have, Emilio? We've got a studio booked a week on Monday.
Looks like Leona's the hot favorite.
The golfer pro? But she just came out of high school.
She's 24. She's gonna be great.
You gotta be kidding me, Emilio. Who's heard of her? Except for a couple of college kids.
The 20-somethings and all the moms love her. Trust me, we did the research.
She looks like the girl next door. We wanted someone with more charisma.
Leona's a role model. Her image is, hey, I've made it. Ambitious young woman finds the American dream. And she's not another would-be singer or actress.
You think? Does she know what we do?
Sure. She says she bought your paints and did up her bedroom herself when she was 16. Come along to the casting and check her out for yourself.
Don't worry, I will. We gotta get this absolutely right.
Oh, is that the time? Sorry, Jody. I have a briefing with the TV director now. By the way, how are you doing?
Well, as you can see, I'm looking and feeling huge.
The little ones do any day now, right?
Any day now.
You take care of yourself.
Thanks, Emilio. Adios.
Unit 4. Marketing. Track 36.
Leona Pedraza for Home to You. Take 5.
Hi, I'm Leona Pedraza, and like any professional woman, I like to call the shots. And, not just on the course. Sorry, I mean the golf course.
No, Leona, you need to be quicker on that line. Straight after the shot, right? Pow! And not just on the golf course. Let's take it from the top.
Oh yeah, whatever. It's just that it sounds a bit weird.
I know, but it's the script, okay, hon? Just think Home to You. It's your ideal store. The store you always visit when you go to the mall. Like a second home. Can we do another take, everybody? And Leona, if you fluff your lines this time, we'll just edit it, okay? Just relax. Don't worry.
I'm worried. Leona Pedraza, for Home to You, take 6.
Hi, I'm Leona Pedraza, and like any professional woman, I like to call the shots. And not just on the golf course. So if you rented a new apartment, or you have La Familia around for a barbecue, or just fixing something at home for your mama, you can find it all here at Home to You, the store with a Latin touch.
Okay.
Is that a take?
Well, can we do it just one more time, Leona? And you know that marketing strapline? Could you, could we have a little more oomph on it? A bit more sassy? Say it like you mean it. You know, I don't know, I'm thinking, the store with a Latin touch.
I'll try.
Unit 5. Employment Trends. Tracks 1 to 8. Speaker 1.
I'm covering for sick leave until the end of the month. Then I hope the agency has something else lined up for me.
Speaker 2.
You see, after I had the baby, it was getting to be impossible to combine full-time work with my family commitments. So, when my maternity leave was up, they agreed to let me finish at 3 o'clock instead of 5.
Speaker 3.
The company wanted to reduce the office costs, and I jumped at the chance to work from home. I don't miss travelling to the office every day, but I do miss my colleagues. Sometimes.
Speaker 4.
Like most of my colleagues at the hospital, we have to work on a 24-hour rota, and it's a real problem getting enough sleep, given the strange hours that we sometimes work. It's especially hard when you are working nights.
Speaker 5.
I always wanted to start my own business, so when the opportunity came up to take the redundancy package, the time seemed right. It's great being my own boss.
Speaker 6.
There's always a group of men at the gates of the construction site in the morning, and the supervisor comes out and picks the people they want to work that day. It's all cash in hand, of course.
Speaker 7.
It's good to get some money together before I go back to university, so I'm going to be working in a holiday resort this summer.
Speaker 8.
My sister came to the USA a few years ago for work, and I followed her over. We both clean houses. My son and daughter are still in Mexico with my mother, but I want to bring them here as soon as I can.
Unit 5. Employment Trends. Track 9.
What recent trends have you noticed in employment?
I think there are 3 big ones. The first one is that jobs have become much more skilled. If you look at the increases in employment, they're all for jobs with high levels of skills. This is a very, very constant change that we've seen over time, both in this country and in other countries. The second big change has been the industries. The new jobs have come through in service industries, and they've come through particularly in what we call the high-value service industries. And by those we mean high-tech industries, we mean business services, we mean education services, we mean health services, and we mean the cultural and creative sectors. And these have been the big generators of new jobs, again here and in other countries. And the third thing we've noticed is a lot of this job growth is taking place in major cities. And in particular, we're seeing a big gap open up between those cities that were doing well and those cities doing badly. And so this is a big problem because the new jobs are occurring only in certain parts of the country, and in other parts of the country they've really seen little benefit from this job growth.
Unit 5. Employment Trends. Track 10.
How has technology changed the world of work?
One is it made things much faster. So the response times of businesses and individuals, that's all speeded up. And so people are expected now to work at a much faster pace than they did in the past. Secondly, it's placed a big emphasis on communication skills. If you think about all the changes in new technology, most of them are related to communications in some way or another. And so businesses and individuals who have good communication skills, these are the ones which you've seen develop most.
Unit 5. Employment Trends. Track 11.
What advice in terms of skills preparation would you give those starting out on their careers now?
I think the most important thing is to get the widest set of skills and experiences that you possibly can. Most employers now are not looking for deep specialists. They want people who can work across a wide variety of tasks within the workplace. So particularly communication skills, the ability to get on with other people and work in a team, as well as some technical competence, but the most important thing is to make sure that you have got a wide set of skills rather than just skills in a very, very narrow area.
Unit 5. Employment Trends. Track 12.
Listen, before you go, I've got another one for you. This old woman is driving at 100 miles an hour down the road and she's knitting. Yeah, knitting. So anyway, a policeman in a patrol car spots her and goes after her. He drives up, winds down his window and shouts, "Pull over! Pull over!" And she turns round and shouts back, "No, cardigan!" Yeah, right. Gotta go. Speak to you soon.
Look, Carl, I'm sorry, but this is really driving me up the wall.
Sorry, Yolanda, I wasn't listening. Just checking my email. Could you say that again?
I'm trying to get some work done here, and some days it's just impossible.
Oh, poor you. Got too much to do. I know the feeling.
What? No, that's not it. I'm saying that I can't concentrate with you there.
So, what you're saying is my incredible good looks keep distracting you.
Carl, could you just be serious for 1 minute and listen to me?
I'm sorry. You were saying...
No, I was saying, could you keep it down?
Keep what down?
The noise. You're on the phone all day and... Oh, it doesn't matter.
No, I'm listening. Please go on.
Well, if I'm trying to concentrate on something and you're on the phone, I can't work.
I appreciate how you feel, Yolanda. The thing is, it's important for me to talk to clients and engage in some friendly banter. It really helps to get the sales.
Well, it's not just that. You see, sometimes you're a bit loud on the phone.
Oh, I see. Don't worry. I'll be as quiet as a mouse in future. Quiet as a mouse. You won't even know I'm here. Mike, how you doing? Yeah, I got your email. Yeah, I'm working on the report right now. Yeah.
Unit 5. Employment Trends. Track 13.
So Rob, why are there so many problems and misunderstandings when people write emails to each other?
Primarily because you don't have the visual information and feedback that you have in a face-to-face conversation. You know, things like smiles or nods or even being able to say, "I don't understand." And that also makes it easier to get nasty, to do what they call flaming, sending angry or insulting emails to people. Another factor is that your context when you write it is different from their context when they read it. So, for example, you're in a rush, you write a quick email, their context is different, they don't see it that way, they see it as brusque and direct. And finally, you know, the truth is, some people just don't express themselves so well in writing.
So what can we do?
Well, first, keep those things in mind when you read and write. So when you read an email, don't always believe your first impression. If something doesn't seem right or appropriate to you, think about other possible interpretations. And when you write emails, think about how the other person could maybe misinterpret what you're writing, and then make it clear that you don't mean that. You know, those emoticons seem so silly, but sometimes they help express the tone that you want. Really, as with any conflict, the best advice is to take into account the other person's perceptions and context, what they think and where they're coming from, and to ask questions if you don't know. Open, neutral questions, not the type that begin, "How could you possibly?"
So when there's obviously a problem, is it best to talk about it face to face or on the phone?
Well, for small disputes or misunderstandings, yes. But if you know how to use it, email can be an effective tool to avoid and even resolve conflicts.
How's that?
Well, again, it takes out the visual information. That can be particularly useful for multicultural teams because you can avoid the misunderstandings that can be caused by different communication styles and differences in things like body space or eye contact. Also, if a conflict already exists, well, they can't see if you're angry or frustrated, so you have more control over what you actually communicate. Secondly, you have the time to make your emails more rational and less emotional if you choose. You know, they say that you should count to 10 when you're angry, and an email forces you to do that. Finally, it's a basic but important factor. You can't interrupt and you can't be interrupted.
Unit 5. Employment Trends. Tracks 14 to 19. Speaker 1.
There are strict performance targets, and we lose the bonus if we don't meet them every month. Plus, we get a rude email from the team leader about our work. They don't take anything into consideration.
Speaker 2.
It's sometimes impossible to meet the targets. We only have 5 minutes to deal with each caller, and if there's a tricky booking or the customer can't decide what he wants, then you're stuck. The team leader just doesn't appreciate this.
Speaker 3.
It makes me feel bad that I'm being unhelpful to callers, rushing them through the bookings. And I think they get angry and resentful sometimes for that reason.
Speaker 4.
If a caller's rude or aggressive, which sometimes happens, I don't feel supported by management. I'm desperate for a break sometimes, after dealing with a difficult customer, but there's nowhere to go and chill out, and you'd be in trouble anyway for leaving your workstation.
Speaker 5.
As a team leader, I'm under constant pressure from my manager to make sure my staff are meeting the targets. There's absolutely no flexibility, no room for manoeuvre or individual decision-making.
Speaker 6.
Call monitoring is a major source of stress. I feel like I'm being spied on and that the team leader doesn't trust me to do my job. I have to watch every word I say.
Unit 6. Ethics. Track 20.
How have attitudes to corporate responsibility changed in recent years?
I think there's been a sea change in attitudes because of the level of awareness that there is throughout the world now in how companies do their business. It started, I would say, 15, 20 years ago when there was a first level of interest in how the oil and gas industries were actually extracting oil and gas and the effect that they were having on the local communities. And this raised the level of awareness. From that time, it has developed quite significantly because with the growing 24/7 media world, the growth of the internet, there are very few places that a company can hide what it's doing. And companies are being brought to account for how they do their business. Not only environmental issues, but also it's moved on into how companies deal with companies in their supply chain. An example would be a company that perhaps has a long supply chain. It might be manufacturing clothes, it might be manufacturing shoes, and it's outsourced that work. So other people are doing the work for them. And unless they control how that work is done, sadly, in some cases, it's done by child labour. Nowadays, this is being exposed.
Unit 6. Ethics. Track 21.
How have companies' attitudes to accountability changed?
I think they've changed in the sense that in the old days, when it were family-run companies, and I'm going back now 100 years, there was a great deal of trust around the way that the companies were being run. Companies were quite paternalistic, so there was an attitude of, don't worry, we'll look after you, both of the customers, obviously, but also of employees. And that model, that business model, I would call a trust model. And that carried on for many, many years, and it's really only until the 1980s, 1990s, when there were some quite significant corporate scandals that caused people to doubt this. And married with what the growing media attention on how companies were behaving, the growing attention around environmental issues back in the oil and gas industry, led again to this raising of awareness, to the extent the companies thought maybe this isn't the model anymore. And certainly from their customers and people interested in business, they said, no, we don't trust you, please involve us. So we moved to more of a model of involve us in how you do your business. We would like to help you to do it better. That worked with many companies, with others it didn't. So that model then evolved to show us you're doing business in the right way. And that, for many companies, is where it stopped for quite a number of years.
Unit 6. Ethics. Track 22.
Around 2000, again, a change of language that was being used by stakeholders, people who have an interest in how the company is run, where they started talking about corporate responsibility. They asked companies actually to prove to those outside the company that this was the way that they were doing their business. At that time, we had a number of companies beginning to produce, in addition to their annual report and accounts, their corporate social responsibility reports or corporate responsibility reports. These names have been changed over the years. Typically now it's corporate responsibility or indeed sustainability reports. And so the model at the moment, as we look at it, is prove to me. Companies are being asked to prove to their people, not only their customers, their shareholders, their employees, their suppliers, how they do their business. There isn't one further stage that might happen, and indeed it has in some areas, and that is obey me. And this is where society deems, through the democratic process, that companies are not behaving, and therefore they encourage their governments to bring in law to make them behave and to enforce that law. And that is what I would call at the end of this trust me, involve me, show me, prove to me. The ultimate is obey me.
Unit 6. Ethics. Track 23.
Of course, it's not always easy to do the right thing, especially when friends and family are involved. As the saying goes, we prefer to do business with people we like. But from the company's perspective, whether one of the suppliers is a friend or not is neither here nor there. In the first place, you need to ask yourself what is in the best interest of the company. If it was up to me, I'd want to go for the best price. In this situation, you have two duties of fairness, to your company and to your supplier friend. But it depends on what you've already promised. You say you're in danger of losing a close friend over this deal. On the other hand, your friend should understand that you're in a tricky situation. Is he prepared to lower his prices? If not, and he reacts badly to a negative decision, maybe he's not the kind of person you want to socialise with anyway. But if he's a level-headed guy, I'm sure you'll be able to sort something out. Another thing you could do is to speak to your boss, who might talk to your friend, so that you avoid any direct confrontation. The important thing is that you show your friend that you're acting fairly, at the same time as demonstrating to your boss that you can make business decisions without being swayed by any personal interests.
Unit 6. Ethics. Track 24.
Most readers seem to think this is a clear-cut case. There can be no contest, they say, between getting a job through nepotism and working for a fair trade company. However, I don't see it that way. This is simply the first in a series of make or break decisions you'll have to make in your working life. where you have to weigh up the pros and cons, such as the company you want to work for, your salary, chances of promotion, workmates, and family commitments. Firstly, you should ask yourself whether you have any reservations about working for a tobacco company. Apart from anything else, you're likely to start smoking again. Do you really want to put your reputation at risk by working for an unethical company? With your second option, you have the opportunity of a career in the family firm. Although working with family members is never easy, and you may end up hating going to work somewhere where you are despised for being the director's favourite niece. On the other hand, I doubt if you'll be happy at the Fair Trade Company for long, as you sound like an ambitious young woman. What you finally decide is up to you, but you need to ask yourself what you want from a job and where you want to be in the future. What I would say, though, is your first job won't be your last. There are a number of other job offers that will follow once you have some solid experience under your belt.
Unit 6. Ethics. Track 25.
Yeah, and
Let me just get my mobile off. Hang on.
Right, shall we start then? John, do you mind taking the minutes?
Sure.
Okay, you've all seen the agenda. The question today is, how are we going to communicate these redundancies to employees? It's in everyone's interest to make this as smooth and painless as possible.
Oh, well, that's an understatement.
John?
Well, it's not going to be exactly painless, is it? The Human Resources Department is going to have to tell a dozen people they're not coming back to work after the holiday.
Some vacation, huh?
Precisely.
But we discussed this in our last meeting. We said today's meeting was going to be about communicating the redundancies to the people in question.
Andrea's right. The decision's already been made.
If
I could just finish, please. And what we need to focus on now is the how.
Well, I don't see why human resources always need to do everyone else's dirty work.
That's what you're there for.
If some people from the sales department are losing their jobs, then I think it'd be better if it came from their sales manager.
Oh, great. So now I'm the bad guy? You should never have taken on half a dozen new people in production at the start of the year.
Oh, come on, Vincent. You know we needed temporary staff in production to cover those orders.
Okay, let's not get personal here. Redundancies have to be made. The company will, of course, be very sorry to see some of our staff go. What I would say, though, is we need to let them know soon, because these rumours are going to create bad feelings. So...
There's already bad feeling, Becky. People are whispering in corridors. Staff morale is low.
Absolutely. The way I see it, there's an economic downturn, orders are down, everyone's heard the company's restructuring.
Well, then...
Okay, hold on a minute. Let's go round the table. Vincent, what do you think?
I think we should have told it to him straight after our last meeting. But now... Look, if you just let me finish... But now, we got to devise a communications plan to let all staff know about the restructuring ASAP.
John, do you think it's necessary to inform all members of staff?
At this stage, we should just talk to individuals. Right. We can send a general memo after that informing everyone of the redundancies. You know, minimise unnecessary concern.
Minimise unnecessary concern? John, they're losing their jobs. Half my team are going to be out on the streets.
Vincent, can we all just calm down a moment? Vincent, please go on.
Would someone like to tell me why we're having a meeting if the decision has already been made?
Vincent, I appreciate your concerns, and John has got a point about talking to people on a one-to-one basis. But we need to keep the rest of staff informed too. So I say John prepares an internal memo, okay? Something along the lines of, we are taking prudent measures in tough times in order to protect the long-term interests of all of our...
Prudent measures in tough times... sorry, what else?
The main thing is to communicate this in a transparent way. I'll give you a hand with the internal memo later, John.
Okay, thanks.
Listen, I think it best if we go ahead with this in the next day or two. I know this isn't going to be easy. John, I'd like you to conduct these interviews, but you'll need to liaise with Vincent beforehand. Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Fine.
Unit 6. Ethics. Track 26.
Most kids love cereals in the morning, but according to a recent report, some breakfast cereals for children are more than 50% sugar by weight. The study, published in the Journal of Nutrition, found that children's cereals have more sugar, salt, carbohydrates and calories per gram than cereals that are not marketed at kids. A single serving of 10 popular cereals, including brands such as Ready to Go by Daybreak, can have as much sugar as a donut. 2 of the brands were found to be more than 50% sugar by weight, while 8 brands were at least 40% sugar. The food industry spends about £145 million annually advertising these cereals to children. Colourful characters and collectible gifts inside the packs are meant to stimulate your child into wanting these fun foods. But the damage they can do to your child's health is no laughing matter. We spoke to Helen Wheatfield, an expert nutritionist from the National Food Council.
Child obesity has become a major concern, with excess sugar and carbohydrates being the 2 main culprits. In our study, we found that most kids usually serve themselves over 50% more than the suggested serving of 30 grams. But we also found 2 cereal brands that scored very well in our nutrition rating. Mini Oats and Barley Bites had only 1 gram of sugar per serving and a healthy 3 grams of fibre.
So, if you don't want your children eating a sugary breakfast, check the nutritional information on the side of the cereal pack. Jonathan Oates, Health Watch.
Unit 6. Ethics. Track 27.
According to a recent report, food manufacturers still continue to mislead consumers. Daybreak, for example, has said it has now standardised its food labels and claims that its children's cereals are healthier than ever. But when nutritional experts checked ready-to-go cereals, they found that sugar content had only been reduced by 10%. At 40%, or 12 grams, critics say Daybreak sugar content is still higher than it should be. In contrast, other brands of cereals only have 1 gram, or about 3% of sugar. Sales of Ready-to-Go have continued to drop, despite the company giving away thousands of its cereal packs in supermarkets last week as part of a promotional campaign. We spoke to one of their former employees, an expert nutritionist who prefers to remain anonymous.
Daybreak should have reduced its levels of sugar, salt and carbohydrates in children's cereals and increased the fibre content too. This was my recommendation, but the company told me kids wouldn't eat cereals without sugar. At the end of the day, it's a question of common sense, and kids learning to make better food choices. I mean, do you want your child to eat the equivalent of a sugary donut for breakfast?
A spokesperson for Daybreak told Health Watch that the company is donating part of its profits to a children's project in Mali. But parents back home, who just want their kids to eat a healthy breakfast, might take a bit more convincing. Jonathan Oates, Health Watch.
Working Across Cultures 2. Ethical International Business. Track 28.
Are companies more accountable than they used to be? If not, how can they become so?
In the main, companies are more accountable, particularly those that are listed on a public stock exchange. The laws nowadays require them to be more accountable, and that's on an international scale. And I think that's very healthy. Some companies have gone further and have signed up to international standards of accountability. And these tend to be run by institutions which have developed frameworks whereby the company can check its activities against these frameworks to prove to stakeholders and the outside world that they are behaving and that they are doing business in the right way. However, there are some flaws in those frameworks in that they tend to be a one-size-fits-all. So, if you're a company in the oil and gas industry, or you're a pharmaceutical company, or you're in financial services, you're faced with the same set of questions.
Right.
And that might not be entirely appropriate because, well, obviously, those are very different types of industries and activities. But there are opportunities to demonstrate accountability, and the more enlightened companies are certainly doing so. Some responsible companies are listed on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index in the States, or the FTSE for Good index that's run on the same lines in the UK.
Working Across Cultures 2. Ethical International Business. Track 29.
How can institutions go about rebuilding trust when things go wrong?
Well, trust has to be earned, and it takes a long time for companies to earn that trust from its customers and employees. But it can be so easily lost. It can be lost by saying something misleading or wrong about your product, which then gets spread through the rumour mill. Trust can be lost by the unethical actions of a company itself or an individual within it. You know, an employee bribing someone or being accused of corruption. But once lost, you have to work very hard at regaining it. The easiest way to regain that trust is just to be very open and honest about what went wrong and try and address the issues and get it right in the future. I'd say the key is being frank and being transparent about what you do. One sector that has recently been going through this is the defence and aerospace industry. For many years, it saw itself as an industry apart. You know, they dealt with governments, they were selling their products to governments on behalf of governments, and they felt that they needn't be worried about corporate responsibility. With accusations that have been made against the defence industry, things have changed. One of the first companies to deal with this was BAE Systems, which appointed a special ethical committee called the Wolf Committee, which actually looked into their ethical business conduct and made recommendations for how they should behave in the future. Then the defence industry together created a code of conduct, first in Europe, called the Common Industry Standard. And then another was created at an international level, bringing together European as well as American defence and aerospace companies. And this is how the defence industry is trying to rebuild trust with the wider public. You know, so they're now more aware of how they do business. And I think that's a very positive move.
Unit 7. Finance. Track 30.
Triodos Bank recently won the Financial Times Sustainable Bank of the Year award. What exactly is sustainable banking?
When we were given the award, the people who presented it made it very clear that it was a mixture of two things, which is what we do, but also how we do it. And I think in terms of what we do, as a bank, we are purely focused and always have been on supporting projects that are delivering a social, environmental, positive impact. That's what the mission is built on. So all the projects that we lend to, whether they be individuals or companies, businesses, are all doing something that in some way is delivering a positive impact socially and environmentally. In terms of how we do it, which is equally important, our business model is built on working with the real economy. So we fund ourselves with deposits from real people, mostly individuals but some businesses, and then we lend that money to real projects that are actually doing things. We know them well, we work with them closely, we have an expertise in the various sectors to which we lend. And what that means is we're not exposed in terms of lending to some third-party removed derivative product, the risk of which is not really understood, and that goes wrong, the repercussions are enormous. All of that builds up to an understanding that the return that we seek to achieve is not just about finance, it's about the social and environmental impact as well. And so people talk about the triple bottom line, that is really important to us, and that I think is a great feature of a truly sustainable bank.
Unit 7. Finance. Track 31.
Triodos invests in over 9,500 projects. What sorts of projects are these and which are giving the best returns?
They're very exciting projects, that's one of the things I would like to say. I mean, they cover a huge range of activity. As I said earlier, they are all focused on making a difference in a social or environmental way. So they're all pursuing social and environmental aims. But if you look across the range of things that we're involved in, so in renewable energy, we're lending to some of the major renewable energy providers in the UK. In social housing, we're financing some of the big providers of social housing in the UK, such as Mencap and their subsidiaries. And then we're also involved in trading activity, which has a fair trade focus to it. Organisations like Cafe Direct, who are the sort of major hot drinks fair trade provider in the UK. So a vast range of organisations, all with that firm social and environmental focus. In terms of return, as a provider of debt funding, the return for us is merely the interest that we are paid on the loan.
Unit 7. Finance. Track 32.
Do you think that changes in the banking system are necessary, and if so, why?
I think the sort of changes that we'd like to see are this focus on banking in what I said before, the real economy, as opposed to creating products and services that are several places removed from the bank that is involved in the business. This notion that we can then, or that banks can then manage that risk in a way that avoids any danger has clearly been proven to be entirely incorrect, and the consequence was we nearly saw a complete failure of the banking sector. So I think more engagement with the real economies in whichever sectors the banks are operating, and also I think some separation of activities. We've seen various ideas put forward about separating the more esoteric, the more investment banking type activity from the more straightforward commercial banking. We all need banks to go about everyday business. We're all therefore engaged with banks. We are at risk of those banks failing. If those banks are more likely to fail because they're also doing business which is of a more risky nature, that seems to be entirely inappropriate. And I think some recognition of separation there will be very helpful going forward.
Unit 7. Finance. Tracks 33 to 36. Speaker 1.
Minister, on the subject of tax evasion, I was wondering whether the Minister could confirm whether it's true that the tax authorities bought copies of confidential banking data from a former employee of the National Bank of Liechtenstein.
Yes. Well, I'm afraid I'm not in a position to comment on that at this point in time.
Well, but surely the public has a right to know.
Well, if you just let me finish, the government will be issuing a press statement later in the day concerning that matter.
Speaker 2.
And I think we still have 5 minutes for questions. Yes, the gentleman at the back.
What would you say were the secrets of fraud accounting? I mean, how do you decide whether to take a client or not?
I'm sorry, do you mind using the microphone, and can you tell us your name, please?
Yeah, sorry. Peter Guthrie, accountant. My question concerns fraud in accounting. I'd like to know more about your policy for taking on clients when it comes to investigating fraud.
Thanks, Peter. So your question is about how we take on new clients.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking from our experience, I can say we turn down 2 jobs out of 10 because we are not comfortable with the prospective clients. I hope that answers your question.
Speaker 3.
I have 100,000 euros, but I'm not sure how to invest the money.
If I understand you correctly, you'd like me to advise you on how to invest your money?
Yes. Could you tell us what makes a good investment?
Well, I'm often asked that question. To be honest, Anne-Marie, sometimes it's just instinct or a personal recommendation. But I can tell you what is not a good investment. I would avoid any family businesses, any business that claims to be number 1, or any business that has already peaked.
Thanks, that's very useful.
Speaker 4.
OK, so that's an overview of investment in startups in Europe. Are there any questions before I move on?
I'd like to ask you why you think most financiers are not investing in technology in Russia.
Well, that's difficult to say, and it's not my field of expertise as such, but I would hazard a guess it's too risky, despite the large pool of science and maths talent.
So you're saying Russia is too risky?
Well, not exactly, no. In fact, the unpopularity of high-risk investment is an advantage for those investors interested in the region.
And the fact that business startups in Silicon Valley have dozens of venture capital companies to choose from, whereas in Russia we have relatively few.
Yes, that's a good point. In fact, one Russian businessman told me that there are 3 types of investors. The first are the 3 Fs, friends, family and fools. Then you have the so-called angel investors, the individual investors, and the venture capitalists, who take a project to the next level, to the strategic investors.
Strategic investors?
Yes, if I could just finish what I was saying. At the last stage, the strategic investors are governments, big multinationals, that kind of thing. But it's the angels with the highest risk and highest reward that are lacking in Russia.
Unit 7. Finance. Track 37.
Do you think you could describe what you do in 10 words?
I evaluate investment proposals and assess their management teams.
And how do you think your personal assistant would describe you?
Determined, a bit insensitive, but with a sense of humour.
Did you ever predict you would end up where you are today?
No. I've ended up a great deal richer than I ever imagined. When I was a young lad, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and someone advised me to go into private equity. Things just took off from there, really.
I'd like to know who has been your biggest influence.
My grandfather, without a doubt. He built himself up out of nothing.
And can you tell me, what's the worst job you've ever done?
Oh, working in a motorway service station.
Would you mind telling me what's the worst thing you've ever had to do at work?
Fire people. I hate doing it, but sometimes it's a necessary evil.
And I was wondering if you had any guilty pleasures.
Guilty pleasures? Oh, lots. No, I'm only joking. It would have to be taking it easy. I don't do it very often, and then I feel guilty.
And what would you say was your #1 rule?
Be open and honest. It works in the long term.
Right, and I have to ask you, have you ever lied at work?
No. My wife tells me I'm a very bad liar.
And have you ever praised someone and not meant it?
No. Though a woman once threw a cup of coffee at me during her investment proposal, so she probably wished I had.
So how important is money to you?
Less than family, but more than sport.
Right, and if you hadn't gone into finance, have you any idea what you would have done?
I'd have been a dentist.
And finally, I'd like to ask you how you'd like to be remembered.
As a loving husband and father who lived life to the full.
Unit 7. Finance. Track 38. Evan Griffiths.
Can you tell me about your business idea in a nutshell?
I set up my own e-book publishing company, eSellers, which led me to create an online bookstore. I've now developed my own e-reader, also called the eSeller. The idea is to make the eSeller reader smaller and smarter so that it fits easily into a pocket or handbag.
We'd like to know a little more about your professional background. What kind of knowledge and expertise have you got?
I'm a former management consultant turned a serial entrepreneur. So I'm good at maths and I know how to run a business. I'm also a big thriller reader and I'm writing my own e-thriller at the moment.
Give me 3 good reasons why we should invest in you.
First of all, I've already set up 2 businesses successfully. Secondly, when I set up the company last year, I would have been happy for eSellers to rank 5th by sales worldwide. But now we have an 8% share of the e-book market, and with some venture capital, I think we can be #2.
Oh, so you're pretty ambitious then?
Yes, definitely. And thirdly, I'm convinced this will be the year of the e-book.
Unit 7. Finance. Track 39. Agnes McQueen.
What makes you think people are going to buy an expensive Scottish goat's cheese?
Because it's a quality product. And people are basically willing to pay a bit extra because it's produced by a carbon-neutral company. Green consumer products are in demand again. That's a fact.
Do you mind me...
Sorry.
No, please, carry on.
You know, The Scottish Government hopes there will be 200,000 new jobs created in green industries over the next 5 years, and we want to be a part of that new economy.
Do you mind me asking why your partner isn't here today? She's your sister, right? How do you work together?
Well, we're co-directors, and one of us needed to stay in the office today. People say I'm more the public relations person, whereas Morag's a bit shy. But she's absolutely brilliant at the nitty-gritty and the figures. We make a great team.
You say you're passionate about your business.
Aye.
Being passionate as an entrepreneur is all very well, but what about the money? I get the impression you're not in this for the money, are you, Agnes?
Well, of course, there are financial benefits, both for us and for you as investors, but I wouldn't say we're only in it for the money. It's a family business, and most importantly, we pride ourselves on being a carbon-neutral company.
Unit 7. Finance. Track 40. Trolls McClintock.
We were wondering what kind of investment you were looking at. We obviously haven't got £55 million to spare.
Well, yes, no, I realise you're a small syndicate, but I heard that Scotland was investing in early-stage risk capital. I've also been talking to Edinburgh University, and they're prepared to co-invest in this venture. Actually, I'll be going to the States soon to talk to some aircraft manufacturers there, as well as a shipbuilding company. I think people are very excited about being involved in a venture of this scale.
I'd like you to be honest here and tell me whether you've ever done anything like this before.
Well, I'm an aeronautical engineer and an expert ballooner. I've set several world records for travelling by hot air balloon, and of course, this is a completely new venture. So, yes, I accept it's risky, but we got to start thinking outside the box if we want to change the world. We can't rely on oil like we've done in the past. The future is renewable energy.
To tell the truth, it sounds completely crazy. Do you really think you'll be able to carry it through?
Well, what can I say? My family are adventurers, and we've always taken risks. My father was a mountain climber, and my grandfather, who was a Scot, was a pilot. If you invest in Solair, you'll be part of an amazing solar-powered adventure.
Unit 8. Consultants. Track 41.
When you're advising a company on its operational efficiency, what are your first steps?
Let me start by defining what we mean by operations. So we refer to order to cash, meaning the point from which an order is placed by a customer through to the point at which that order is delivered to the customer and cash is paid for the product. So that's the domain in which we're operating. The first thing we want to do is to understand what it is that the company should be delivering to its customer and how well they're actually delivering. And we try to understand that through a series of techniques and methods, and I'll give you an overview of those. The first thing is operations is all about serving customers. So we have to start by understanding what it is that customers want. We want to be sure that we're delivering a service they value, a product that they like, and that's being done every time to the right level of quality. So we start by talking to customers, and those conversations will be quite detailed. They'll be quite specific about the features of the products that the customer values. What is it about the service that's given to them that they like? What is it they don't like? Not in a sort of very broad general sense, but in quite a detailed way, so that we can take those points of view back to our client, and we can use that information to shape the way that they're delivering services and products.
Unit 8. Consultants. Track 42.
The second point is we then want to understand the work that the company is doing to deliver those services and products. We use a technique called value stream mapping that many people will be familiar with, but it looks at the complete process, so all of the activities required to deliver the service or product, linked together so that we can see how the whole organisation is working together to deliver those services. We then start to analyse the work in more detail. We're interested in the amount of time that each step takes. We're interested in levels of quality at each stage of the process. We want to know where things go wrong, why they go wrong. We look at all of the work that's done,
in that process, and we ask, is this work valuable to the customer? Is this just internal bureaucracy? Are we doing things twice or three times and not adding value to the customer? So that we have a real understanding of the efficiency with which services are delivered in terms of the quality, the cost, and the delivery effectiveness of those services.
Unit 8. Consultants. Track 43.
And once you've learnt about how the company operates, what are your next steps?
Well, we move quickly into starting to redesign the work. The client company is interested in the solution rather than a long diagnosis. So phase 1 is all about helping to understand what's going wrong. The real interest is in coming up with a better way of doing things. And this is all about applying creative techniques to improving the way that the work is delivered. And again, this is where the input from the customers is particularly important. It helps us to reshape the way that services and products are defined and the way they're delivered. We'll very often say to our clients, there are things that you should stop doing because your customer does not value them at all and it's a waste of people's time and money. Or there are things that you should do differently. So that's a starting point. So we look at service features, we look at lead times. We use reduced lead times as a driver for efficiency in an organisation. So if, for example, a customer wants something within 1 day instead of the 4 days that it's currently taking, we'll lay that down as a target and say, our target is to design a process that allows us to deliver to customers within a day. How are we going to make that happen? So our second step here is to identify the drivers of improved performance, which might be, as I said, lead time. It might be about driving costs down. It might be about driving quality up.
Unit 8. Consultants. Track 44.
And then we start to redesign the work at a detailed level to ensure that we can deliver improved performance. And that will include taking out unnecessary steps. It might include looking at a particular set of activities and saying, well, this is something you could outsource because another company can do this cheaper or better than you. We might look at restructuring the company, at simplifying its structure so that instead of having a lot of small sites, we consolidate into larger sites to increase efficiency. We might look at the management infrastructure, the way that people are managed, the way that targets are set and performance indicators are used to try and help managers get a better understanding of their performance and therefore to help them improve their performance. So we look at a whole range of things within what we refer to as the management system, all of the activities and influences in a company that affects performance. And then during that process, we'll run a series of workshops and meetings with client staff. And during that process, we start to see a new design evolving from all of those discussions and all of that analysis, until we gradually come up with a consensus around something that we think is going to be better. And at that stage, we start looking at the business case and building a strong financial case for making the changes that we're recommending.
Unit 8. Consultants. Track 45.
So, Mr. Kilowalla, I was wondering if you could deliver a bit sooner.
Sooner? How much sooner?
Ideally a fortnight sooner. As you know, we've been doing business now for a year, so we'd expect your usual standards, of course. And we hope that wouldn't change your prices or anything. OK, maybe we could talk a little about terms of payment at this point.
We could deliver sooner, provided you paid in cash.
Cash? I suppose I could look into it, but I'd have to check with my supervisor first.
Your supervisor?
That's right. You know, John?
Mr. John Himona. I've never met him.
Ah, yes. Well, he'd have to confirm the payment terms, you see. I'm afraid I don't have the authority. Some more tea?
Don't mind if I do. We've had 60-day credit terms to date, as you know, but late payments are no good for our cash flow. I'd have to check with our manager in the warehouse.
No problem.
What if we delivered 1 week earlier and you gave us, say, 30-day credit terms? How does that sound?
30-day credit? I think that should be doable. Leave it with me. I'll see what I can do.
I'll wait to hear from you then, Irene. Or will that be from John Himona?
Unit 8. Consultants. Track 46.
Hello, how's business, Kevin, my friend?
Not bad, Claude. But well, now that you mention it, I was talking to our sales team the other day.
All good news, I hope.
Actually, it seems a couple of the products aren't doing that well.
I'm sorry to hear that. Which ones would those be?
Well, you know I've mentioned this to you before. The talc, baby talcum powder.
But in my country, it's one of our best sellers.
I know. It might do better if it wasn't in a 500-gram container. But it's the lavender body spray that is a real no-go.
Our lavender eau de cologne? I don't believe it.
I'm sorry, but I think our customers tend to associate that kind of smell with, well, their grandmothers or something.
Are you saying it smells old-fashioned?
Yes. So we were wondering whether you'd be able to send us some samples of your, how can I put it, trendier products.
Trendier?
More hip, you know.
Eau de cologne for hip-hop fans?
No.
Do you mean a perfume with technological notes?
Well, not exactly. I mean modern, less of the old ladies.
More cool?
Yes.
Sure. I've brought some new samples with me. Try this. What does that remind you of?
I don't know. Tangerines?
Very good. Citric-based notes with a splash of bergamot and, what do you call it? A dash of cinnamon.
Oh, it's quite strong, isn't it?
For strong-minded British ladies. And economical too.
Really?
Really. Now, our usual price is €10 per 50 millilitres. But for you, we're offering it at €9.50. That's a 5% saving, Kevin.
What would you say to a 10% discount?
Ah, you ride a hard bargain, Kevin.
Sorry?
I mean, you drive a hard bargain.
Well, so do we agree on €9 per bottle, then?
Sure. It's always good doing business with you, Kevin. I'll leave you these free samples, and you'll put it all in writing, won't you?
Consider it a deal. Take care, Claude. €9 per bottle. Brilliant. Hang on. This is a 30-millilitre bottle.
Unit 8. Consultants. Track 47.
So, you see? We saw mobile phones were only available for the super rich. We've invested millions in India building a full-scale network and started selling prepaid mobile phones that cost just $15.
And do you think you can sell a phone at $15 and still make money?
Absolutely. We subsidize them, of course. But typically we have a 3-month payback on our subsidy.
I understand most of your customers are prepaid, Mr. Sukhwala.
Yes, about 90% of our customer base is prepaid. But in wealthier cities like Delhi and Mumbai, about 60% of our customers are on contract.
How interested are they in the latest handsets?
Well, people might not own a car, but having the latest mobile phone is very much a status symbol.
And why South Africa?
Basically, we look at opportunities where existing operators are underserving the population. And we see a lot of opportunities in South Africa. Our goal is to implement a new mobile network here over the next 12 or 18 months.
12 months? You mean in time for the World Athletics Championships next year?
Exactly.
12 months. That's going to be a challenge.
Yes, and it's also going to be a great media opportunity.
I hear you are big sponsors of cricket and sport in general.
Absolutely.
Well, I think Bajaj Tel is in a pretty strong position. I've read your annual growth rate has been over 50%.
That's right.
By the way, I thought we were expecting Mr. Bajaj in today's meeting.
Ah, that must be him now. Excuse me. Yes? 20 minutes. I'll let them know. Bye.
Mr. Bajaj?
Yes. He sends his apologies. He's been having lunch with some imported people. He'll be here in 20 minutes. Mr. Carstens, you said earlier there could be objections from the government?
More than likely.
Yes, possibly. But we are hoping that a mobile operator from India would stand more of a chance than some of the other foreign operators.
Ah. My question is, Mr. Carstens, is how can Heitinger Telecom Consulting help us in the political arena?
Well, My partner, Andrew Heitinger, has one or two well-placed contacts.
That's good to hear. Actually, I was wondering whether we'll be meeting Mr. Heitinger later.
Oh, I'm afraid Andrew is away on business. He'll be back Friday.
That's a pity. Maybe we could catch up with him at the weekend then. Over some cricket, perhaps. Do you enjoy cricket?
Actually, I'm more of a rugby man myself.
I'm a big cricket fan.
Really?
You are? Shall we take a short break? I'd like to give Andrew a call. Annabelle, would you mind checking up on the refreshments?
Refreshments? I thought lunch was... Oh, yeah, got it.
Unit 9. Strategy. Track 1.
We decided a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago, that as a media company we were devoted to content, to high quality content, but content was never going to be enough on its own. We felt that we had to add services to that content to make it more helpful to users. So we added technology in most cases. We added different ways for our customers to use that content. If you're a child studying math, we added new kinds of interactive tools, for instance. Those kinds of things have changed our strategy, and now much of what we sell is digital or digitally enabled in some way.
How do you develop and communicate a strategy in a large multinational organization like Pearson?
We start with the idea that you have to communicate more than strategy. You have to first communicate what the company's goals are and what its values are. And that for us has been the making of our culture, I think, and I think the best companies do have a strong culture. So we have tried to communicate our goals first and then our strategy for achieving those goals. I think I have to communicate directly with everybody. Pearson has 35,000 people in it, but I try to, and the internet allows me to do that, so I try to write letters to everybody every time I think there's something important to say. And the people who run different parts of our company try to do the very same, to communicate directly with the people they work with. And we try, though not always do we succeed, but we try to communicate in a colorful way, but in a simple and down-to-earth way, so that everyone feels that we're all on the same plane. And I think that really helps to communicate the strategy. It helps to communicate anything if you communicate it in simple words, in clear language, so that everybody understands.
Unit 9. Strategy. Track 2.
Our company's goal is to help individuals make progress in their lives through education. And that's a powerful goal, but it allows everybody to be able to get out of bed ready to do something larger than themselves. So the strategies that help us to accomplish that goal are the ones that excite me more. They're bigger thinking strategies. They are things about how you change the world, how you influence maybe person by person, or maybe in large schools or in countries, how you deliver education in a way that is able to teach every person in his own way, in his own time. Those are the strategies that we've employed to move our education company along.
Unit 9. Strategy. Tracks 3 to 6. Speaker 1.
When it comes to quality, the company I most admire is the chipmaker Intel. They have about 80% of the world's PC microprocessor market. Like Apple, they just keep innovating. Intel has just launched a smaller, faster, more powerful chip. Every year, their goal is to introduce new cutting-edge products. Intel calls this its TikTok strategy.
Speaker 2.
I'm a big fan of the Spanish supermarket Mercadona. I think their strategy has been to offer quality produce like fresh fruit and vegetables and develop their own brand at competitive prices. They say they source directly without any go-betweens. The business strategy is called ALP, and that stands for Always Low Prices. What really impresses me, though, is the way they treat their employees. The company website says they regard workers as their second priority after customers and offer all of them permanent work contracts. From what I can see, I think that's true. From cashiers to shelf packers, everyone's friendly and helpful, and there doesn't seem to be a high staff turnover. That's something you don't always see in a lot of supermarkets.
Speaker 3.
I'd say Toyota, any day. Why? For its product quality, customer care, and corporate citizenship. I've been reading about their company philosophy, and it was Taiichi Ono who developed what's known as the Toyota production system. Ono believed in producing perfect goods and said, if a machine is not producing perfect goods, it is not working. Now, I've driven plenty of American models, but the most reliable cars I've ever had have all been Toyotas. If I want to pop across town, I might take my daughter's hybrid. And if I had to drive across the country today, I'd take my Toyota pickup. Toyota has never let me down, unlike other vehicles I've owned that have broken down and have had to be towed.
Speaker 4.
I'm a store manager for H&M, and I can safely say I've never had a bad day at work. I look forward to every day with H&M, and I'm not simply saying that because I work for them. H&M offers customers the latest fashions at affordable prices, and we are socially responsible. We ensure quality merchandise by carrying out regular quality controls, and the company manufactures garments with the least possible impact on the environment. The way we offer best prices is by buying in large volumes and limiting the number of middlemen. The strategy is basically very cost-conscious. I also love the way we sometimes get top fashion designers to design exclusive collections. That's smart marketing for you.
Unit 9. Strategy. Track 7.
So, what's your view of brainstorming sessions, Sarah?
I just don't see the point of them sometimes.
Yes, that can happen if the group hasn't clearly defined the issue to be solved, or the session doesn't stay focused on that issue. Ideally, there shouldn't be more than 8 to 10 people per session, and they should be the right people for the task.
And I don't think that I'm at my most creative when I'm in a large group. I prefer to work on my own. Like first thing in the morning when the office is still quiet. And,
Now, that's not an uncommon feeling, but, when it's done well, brainstorming is a powerful tool. Yes, Martin?
I really like working in groups because the dynamics are different. I think it's a really helpful way of, generating lots of new ideas in a short amount of time.
Well, essentially, the idea is just that, to generate as many ideas as possible.
In our meetings, it's always the same people who do all the talking, though.
The facilitator or chairperson should try to get everyone to contribute, even the quietest people. It's also crucial that he or she encourages all the ideas, as wild as they may seem.
Yes, but most of the ideas people come up with are completely impractical or just stupid. I think we waste a lot of time in these kinds of meetings.
Well, don't spend too long discussing any one suggestion to keep things moving. And all participants should try to have an enthusiastic and uncritical attitude to others' contributions. If someone is too critical, the others aren't going to feel comfortable about being creative. So, try and suspend judgment until later, after the session. Then you can study and evaluate the ideas. Let's try a short practical exercise. I'd like you all to think of new ways to promote your brand. And Sarah, could you write all the ideas on the flip chart?
Sure.
Thanks. So, who'd like to get the ball rolling?
I've got one. How about adverts on the sides of all the buses and bus stops around the city centre? It could be good for business.
That's been done before.
I just thought I'd make a start.
Thanks, Martin. Remember, as I was saying earlier, the rule is there are no bad ideas when we're brainstorming.
Unit 9. Strategy. Track 8.
Before we go on, just let me interrupt you for a minute to tell you about Einstein and his colleagues. They spent years brainstorming with each other, sharing their ideas openly and honestly by using some ancient principles of group communication. It seems that Socrates and other Greek philosophers used to sit around brainstorming and debating issues, but their discussions didn't usually get out of hand. Why? Because the participants followed the 7 principles of discussion established by Socrates. He called these principles koinonia, meaning spirit of fellowship. They were: 1. Establish dialogue. 2. Exchange ideas. 3. Don't argue. 4. Don't interrupt. 5. Listen carefully. 6. Clarify your thinking. And finally, number 7, be honest.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but I'm no Einstein.
Yes. Well, back to where we left off. Does anyone have any more promotion ideas?
Unit 9. Strategy. Track 9.
As I was saying, we can't just carry on with business as usual. The main issue here is that we have an image problem. The research says it loud and clear. People think our stores and our products are old-fashioned.
Yes, we've relied too heavily on our reputation for quality, value and service over the years, and that just isn't sexy anymore.
Hang on. Those are our core values. It's what's made R&F what it is today.
Absolutely, and I'm not suggesting at all that we lose those values. It's more a case of adding to them. I'm thinking of innovation. We need to move with the times. Show that we have new ideas.
Yes, I like that.
Our challenge is to meet the needs of the loyal older customer while anticipating trends in younger fashions and lifestyles. Women especially are shopping by attitude rather than age these days and are far more willing to experiment, for instance, by shopping online.
I think advertising is key to our recovery plan. I'll admit we've made some disastrous decisions in the past that have probably added to our outdated image.
Yes, and maybe we need to hire a new advertising agency for this one.
Yes,
Get
good
some
idea.
fresh ideas. I really believe a good advertising campaign will go a long way to reviving our fortunes.
That and innovation in our furnishings, food and clothing brands. Drop some of the old brands and introduce new lines. Get celebrities to advertise our new ranges.
And let's communicate ideas through the campaign. Remind people what we stand for, that they can always trust our brand. R&F is the same but better, you know?
I think so.
It's also important that the marketing strategy focuses on multiple key areas, including food, that accounts for 30% of our turnover, and women's wear and home furnishings.
Good idea. OK. Since you guys have started, let's brainstorm some more ideas for our new marketing strategy.
Unit 9. Strategy. Tracks 10 to 15. Manager 1.
Our operating costs are always going to be higher than the LCC's. For one thing, we're flying to popular destinations that involve higher airport taxes and route costs. But we could try and weed out some of the poorer routes and reduce the number of landing slots in low season. Then we could switch our aircraft to new opportunities, like having more slots on popular routes in Europe and the US, and expand into the Asian markets. We could also think about having a dual brand structure. I mean, we could develop a low-cost subsidiary airline aside from our own main brand. That would allow us to protect valuable European routes from being lost to competitors.
Manager 2.
We have to reduce maintenance costs on our fleet. If we ordered more of the same models, it would be cheaper in terms of spare parts and staff training. We've been trying to negotiate prices with our main aircraft manufacturer, but I wonder if we should change supplier.
Manager 3.
Stella has been operating for more than 40 years. The airline has an excellent safety record. We've also got experience and expertise that the low-cost airlines just can't match. And we've built our reputation on a quality service to our customers. We need to focus on the passengers who don't mind paying a bit more to travel in comfort, especially on the key long-haul routes where the European LCCs can't compete. Well, not yet anyway.
Staff Member 1.
We could generate ancillary revenue streams in the same way that the LCCs do. I'd charge for in-flight catering. After all, you'd never expect any other form of transport to provide you with free food and drinks. I'd also start charging for more than one piece of check-in luggage. That would offset some fuel costs. And some passengers will be prepared to pay for advanced seat booking and for upgrades. It needs to be done carefully, though. I mean, passengers will just downgrade to the LCCs if we're seen as being just the same as them.
Staff Member 2.
This is not the first time the airline has restructured, and I doubt it'll be the last. Morale is rock bottom right now. We know what cost reductions mean, job losses and worse pay and conditions for the rest of us.
Staff Member 3.
We need to hook up with an airline in the expanding North Asia and Asia Pacific markets, where we have very few routes. In fact, I hear that we're already in discussions with Victoria Jets, the Australian carrier. Both airlines could do with a bigger network, so we can compete with larger rivals.
Working Across Cultures 3. Socializing. Track 16.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Gary Davis, and welcome to Swindon Securities and our annual strategy convention. I hope the wet weather won't spoil your visit too much. Now, we know some of you have come from as far afield as South Korea, Brazil, the USA, and Gloucester. So we've tried to keep the schedule simple today. A tour of the premises, a few meetings, a working lunch and a training session. Only joking. Yeah. Right then, as you all know, I'm the manufacturing manager. It's my job to make the product. It's Sandra's job to design the product. And it's Nathan's job to sell the product. They both think I've got the easiest job. Well, I'll be taking you on a tour shortly. If you have any questions, please just ask. And in case you're still wondering, this is Sandra and that's Nathan. Okay, would you like to follow me through? You'll need to have your security passes at the ready.
Working Across Cultures 3. Socializing. Track 17.
Elvira, I'm so glad you could make it. What was the flight like from Brazil?
Oh, it was a complete nightmare. There were delays because of the air traffic controller strike.
Oh dear, I'm sorry to hear that.
Don't worry, I'm here now.
Right. Oh, by the way, I don't think you've met Nathan. Nathan Donovan. He's the international sales manager at our California office.
Hi. Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Elvira Alves. Nice to meet you, Nathan.
Elvira was made head of the Sao Paulo office this year.
No way. I hear you've been doing great things there.
We try to do our best. Thanks.
Yes, and Elvira is leading the meeting tomorrow on our global strategy.
I see.
I thought we could meet up later with all the team for dinner this evening. How does that sound?
Dinner? Tonight?
That's right. Some of the team know each other, but our overseas partners are a bit out on a limb, so to speak. It's booked for 7. Elvira?
Sure.
Great. I can meet you in the hotel foyer at 6:30.
Gary, actually, I'd prefer to stay in this evening if it's all the same to you.
You're not coming out for dinner this evening?
The thing is, I'd really like to fine-tune my presentation for tomorrow's meeting.
It's just that I thought we could get to know all the partners a bit better.
I know. I'm sorry to let you down. I'm sure Belinda from the Baltimore office will be happy to come along. Sure. Tell you what, perhaps I'll try to make it later for coffee and drinks?
Fine. This sales presentation of yours had better be something, Nathan.
It will be. Catch you later, Gary.
Excuse me, Gary. Did you say we're eating at the hotel at 7?
No, dinner's at 7, but I'll meet you in the foyer at 6:30.
Oh, okay. No problem. By the way, I'd just like to say you've done a great job, Gary.
Oh, thanks.
All of this organization. It must have been a lot of work.
Oh, it was nothing, really.
You're too modest. The program for this week looks great. I'm looking forward to the nightlife in Swindon.
Well, I wouldn't want to raise your hopes. Swindon's not exactly Rio.
Working Across Cultures 3. Socializing. Track 18.
That was a fabulous meal, Gary. People always complain about the food in the UK, but this evening's meal was surprisingly good.
Well, we like to bring visitors here. It's a shame we couldn't sit outside on the terrace, though.
Typical British weather, huh?
I know. I've been thinking, Elvira, we should go to Brazil for our next annual meeting.
Yeah. Let's organise it in Brazil.
Just as long as it isn't during the carnival.
Why is that?
Oh, I heard it's extremely noisy, and some friends once got mugged there.
Oh, really? Well, the carnival unfortunately attracts huge crowds.
Yes, it absolutely ruined my friend's holiday.
Oh, that's a pity.
Well, they ended up spending most of their holiday in a police station because, well, their passports have been stolen too.
Oh, that's awful. So how's your family, Gary?
What? Oh, fine, thanks. My son's doing his exams at the moment, and we're hoping he's going to study economics at university.
Oh, that's great. You must be very proud.
Well, we do what we can. And what are your kids up to?
Kids? Oh, no, I don't have any children.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realise.
That's all right. You must be thinking of my predecessor, Gilberto. He has 5 children.
Right.
Gary, excuse me, I'm just going outside for a cigarette.
But it's still raining. Shall I order you a coffee?
Do they have espresso?
I think it's filter.
No, I'm fine, thanks. I won't be long.
Hi, Gary. What's up?
I think I may have put my foot in it.
What, with Elvira?
Yes, I might have offended our new chief strategist.
Oh? Nice shirt, by the way.
What? Oh, thanks. I got it tailor-made. Nathan, are you fishing for something?
What are you doing tomorrow at breakfast?
Why?
I was just wondering if you wanted to take a quick look at my presentation.
Sure, but I'm relying on you to wow them. No pressure or anything.
Working Across Cultures 3. Socializing. Tracks 19 to 21. Elvira.
I know our British host was trying to be hospitable, but his jokes didn't go down well with everybody. The Korean visitors didn't understand his sense of humor at all, and some of the other delegates wouldn't tell jokes in this way at work, especially in a formal speech. Most of the visitors spoke English, but I think Gary needed to slow down and use less colloquial language.
Nathan.
I guess Gary was a little put out when I turned down his invitation for dinner. Sure, people socialize with work colleagues in the States. The thing is, most of my British and Brazilian colleagues always want to go out and party, but I'm teetotal, so that's a bit awkward at times. They say socializing is good for team building, but why can't we just celebrate the end of a successful meeting? Anyway, Gary should have realized I needed time to prepare for the next day. It was a key presentation.
Elvira.
I wish Gary hadn't mentioned the carnival. Everyone talks about the carnival when they find out I'm from Brazil. Some of my international colleagues think we're partying all the time when in fact I work really hard. Don't get me wrong, I'm enjoying getting to know the team in England, but all this rain, no smoking in restaurants, and watery coffee, it's getting me down.
Unit 10. Online Business. Track 22.
What sort of companies have been the main winners in terms of doing business online?
Well, the first and most obvious group are companies that were set up specifically to do business online, the giant booksellers like Amazon, and also some companies who couldn't have existed in the old days, like eBay, the auction site. I think second are small companies that have been able to sell outside their traditional markets. That's now much easier for them. And the third point is that companies are able to buy things around the world online much more cheaply than they could in the past. Both large companies and also your local plumber might be able to buy something in Hong Kong when he never could have before.
Unit 10. Online Business. Track 23.
Your work involves helping organisations to build truly global websites. What are the key features of such websites?
The first feature of the global website is its complexity. It has to serve a huge number of audiences, both geographically dispersed and also different types of people. They could be customers, shareholders, journalists, governments, all sorts. So the signposting, the navigation and the usability of those websites are all extremely important. I think the second point is to do with branding. You can no longer come across with a look and feel in Bolivia that's different from one in Bulgaria, for example. So everything has to be much, much more homogeneous. It pulls the whole company together in a way that really wasn't necessary in the past.
Unit 10. Online Business. Track 24.
How are companies benefiting from the use of social media?
I think the first area is in marketing, that by very, very subtle use of social networking sites like Facebook and also what they call micro-blogging sites like Twitter, they can get their messages across in a rather different way from the way that they do on the web itself. It's more engaging. They can have more two-way conversations with their customers. And so I think that that's an important point. The second one is that actually they can talk to other groups. For example, people looking for jobs. Young people typically will spend a lot of time on Facebook, so why not go to Facebook to talk to them?
What problems can social media cause for companies?
There's a big reputation risk from social media. If a story gets out which may be false, it can spread very, very fast indeed on Twitter, on blogs, even on YouTube. And it's very, very difficult for companies to deal with that. They have to move much faster than they've been traditionally used to. They can't just ring up journalists. They have to get out there and try and counter the reputation management issue very, very early on.
Can you give us an example?
There's a rare example of a company dealing successfully with a reputation management crisis when Ford has a social media manager. His job is to look after Twitter and things like that. And he discovered that a story was going around that Ford had tried to close down a very small dealership's website. And it appeared that this was Ford behaving quite badly. He sent out messages on Twitter to his followers saying, I'm trying to find out about this, I'm trying to find out about this. Eventually he discovered that there was a Ford side to the story. He put that out, and what could have been quite a nasty fire was put out at the very beginning, within a few hours.
Unit 10. Online Business. Track 25.
And where is online business heading? What developments do you see over the next few years?
Well, I think the developments that are already starting, where companies are having to be much more responsive to their customers, because customers no longer necessarily listen to what a company says to them. They'll go and ask other customers of their experience. It's something that's happening with social media, and that's going to develop enormously. From a more, if you like, exciting point of view, I think we're going to get 3D, so we'll get quite a lot more, going into a virtual shop. I think that's going to become quite big. And also we're going to get the convergence of television and computers, so in a few years' time you really won't notice whether you're using a television or computer. They will be the same thing.
Unit 10. Online Business. Track 26.
I think that gives us time for a couple of questions before the break. Oh, yes.
I was just wondering what you thought were the main differences between government websites and those in the private business sector.
Right, well, it's really what I was talking about at the start of my presentation. One of the main differences used to be that business websites were aimed at selling online, whereas government sites were simply offering information and access to services. But a new online business might start off by offering its products or services for free, while some government sites might be taking payment for certain services. I don't really want to go into too much detail at this stage, as Peter Adams will be dealing with commercial sites and credit card security in the next session.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
I'd like to know how a company can improve its online sales through web page design.
I'm really sorry. Could you just repeat that question, because I don't think everyone heard?
Oh, sure, sorry. I'd like to know how a company can actually improve its online sales through web page design. I mean, what is it exactly that makes it more effective?
Well, as I've already said, Peter will be dealing with those kinds of issues later. But what I would say is think of eBay and Amazon. You know, what makes those sites so effective? Making the online experience quick, easy and user-friendly is the key. Otherwise, users will just click off the site. And building flexibility, I mean, allow your user to change her mind and order 2 items instead of 3 without going all the way back to the beginning. When you think of the most successful sites, they have very user-focused design, provide information without overloading the user, and are just simple to use. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thanks.
Good.
I'd be interested to know more about copywriting. I mean to say, could you tell us what kind of language you think works well on websites?
That's a really interesting question. The language, tone and look of a business site is going to be quite different. Although government sites should also be open, friendly and clearly written. And we've seen the increasing use of social media such as wikis and blogs for both company and government sites. But on the whole, commercial sites use language that's what I call punchy or young and trendy. And copy, or the language used on websites, is primarily designed to encourage users to spend money.
Yes, but I was wondering whether there was any kind of language that you would avoid using.
So, your question is, what kind of language should we avoid? Well, apart from the obvious, you know, offensive language. The sort of language depends on the industry and the purpose of the website. Is it aimed at customers, members of staff or shareholders? What I usually say is don't use very technical terminology. Jargon, abbreviations and acronyms should all be avoided. You'll find some guidelines on copywriting in the handout. Is that all?
I think so.
Okay, great. Well, let's break for 15 minutes then. Thank you.
Unit 10. Online Business. Track 27.
I'm Leah Chu, and our special guest today is award-winning tailor Zaina Mirza. Zaina, you're one of the top 5 tailors in Paris, if not Europe. What do you think you owe your success to?
Well, we always try to personalize our suits. I don't offer a standard 2-button suit. People want special touches. And once a client has worn a tailored suit, they can't bear to buy clothes off the peg.
Sure, but the competition in the industry is extremely tough. I mean, with so many online retailers offering top brands at cut prices, do you think your success is going to last?
Of course, trends come and go. But at Mirza, we're using new media tools to find key trends, to find out what our clients really want.
Mm-hmm. And I hear you've expanded the business to include tailored shirts. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, customers can choose styles, submit their measurements, and mix and match fabrics online. And after the first order, We offer a 10% discount on subsequent orders.
Cool. You mentioned new media. How are you using digital media in your business? Customers are so fickle nowadays. They're quick to complain and change brands.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm not sure I follow you.
What I'm asking is, how are you adapting your online business? I suppose you must have a social media team, someone trawling the internet?
Oh, yes. That's an interesting point.
Uh-huh.
Well, up to now, I can safely say we've had hardly any complaints. But having a social media manager is something I'm considering.
Right. And what would you say to critics who think your suits are not all they claim to be?
Excuse me?
Your garments are advertised as made in Paris, but bloggers are saying they're made in Frankfurt, China, or who knows where.
Really? I didn't realize. I mean, that's a false accusation. Our suits are mostly made in Paris, but it could be Frankfurt, depending on the customer's location.
Mostly? So, are you saying they're made in Paris or not?
Well, it depends.
So, made in Paris is what? Just a marketing slogan?
No, I didn't say that.
And what about your business finance? Is it true that the company is experiencing some financial difficulty?
Those are just rumors.
Right.
Mirza Tailoring Fashions is going from strength to strength.
And finally, I'm sure all our viewers have been following the Don't Shop Sweatshop campaign. What's your position on that, Zaina?
Well, at Mirza, we are opposed to sweatshop labour, obviously.
Yes, but a little birdie tells me you haven't yet signed the petition.
No, not yet. But it's something I'm seriously thinking about.
You heard it here first on our show. Zaina Mirza is going to sign the petition. And next, we have l'enfant terrible of the fashion world, Vincent Selt. Let's take a look at Vincent's digitally inspired Futura collection. It's to die for.
Unit 11. New Business. Track 28.
What kind of startups are the most popular with first-time entrepreneurs?
Well, really there's two types of startups which people do nowadays. One is something that solves a problem in a local area. So, for example, there's a local entrepreneur and notices there's a problem. So may start a plumbing company or an accounting company, or just something that brings services to the local area that aren't there already. So that's some kind of physical business, usually a services business. And the other one, of course, are internet businesses, where anybody, in theory, can have a website and drive people to there and then sell things from it. It could be selling information, could be selling products. So I'd say there are two types. There's local businesses and internet businesses.
Unit 11. New Business. Track 29.
What are some of the classic mistakes that first-time entrepreneurs make?
Well, the difference between a good startup and a bad startup is whether you can actually sell your stuff. So a big mistake that people make is spending too much time developing their product and service without going out to sell it. So the key thing is find customers first, then worry about delivery second. And I'd say the other thing that really holds people back is lack of a team, because it's a great myth that entrepreneurship is a solo activity. Actually, it's a team game. In fact, the first advice that I give to budding entrepreneurs is, before they even have an idea, is to find what I call a foil. That's somebody with the opposite set of skills to themselves. So if they're good at delivery, then it's somebody who's good at sales, or if they're good at sales, somebody good at delivery, an introvert and an extrovert perhaps. So build a team is the main thing, and also make sure there are people who actually want to spend money on your product or service.
Unit 11. New Business. Track 30.
What advice would you give to someone starting a new business?
Well, after you've put a bit of a team together, and again, before you start spending any money, we spend a lot of time advising people to get a good mentor. That's somebody who can give you good advice. There's probably somebody you know, maybe a family friend, who's got some business experience and contacts, because mentors do two things. First, they can test your idea to see if it's a good idea and give you practical advice on how to make your product or service better, or how to get customers. The second thing they do is they can pick up the phone or start writing letters for you. They can make contacts for you. They can open doors, which is very important, especially for that elusive first customer. I always say that everybody should have a good elevator pitch, and that comes from the expression where you're in an elevator or a lift and you're pitching your idea to somebody important, perhaps a customer or somebody who might invest in your company. I always say there's 5 P's that people should remember. The first P stands for pain. Where is the pain or problem that you solve? That's the first question you must ask yourself. Second P is fairly straightforward. What is the premise of your business? What does your business actually do? What products or services do you sell? Third P is all about people, because whatever business you have, there's lots of different people competing with you. So what makes your people better than somebody else's people? It's all about the people in your organisation. The fourth P is P for proof, which is, it sounds really good, a good business idea, but you have to have some proof, and the best proof is some happy customers that you can direct potential customers to. So successful customers is very good proof. The last P is a bit more sort of philosophical. It's what is the purpose of your business? Now, you could say a very obvious purpose would be to make money, and that's absolutely true. But the second purpose is, why are you doing this business and not something else? Are you making the world a better place? Are you enjoying yourself? Are you having fun? And those are the 5 Ps. So it's pain, premise, people, proof, and then purpose.
Unit 11. New Business. Track 31.
Dunbarry Jewellers, Val Bailey speaking.
Hello, this is Max Bryson calling on behalf of Carswell Department Stores. I'd like to query a bill we received.
I see, Mr. Bryson. Could you give me the invoice number, please?
Yes, it's... I think... I have it here somewhere. Yes, here it is. I'm not sure which number...
It's on the top right-hand side, below the date.
Oh, yes, sorry about that. Yes, it's BJ1687, dated 22nd of May.
BJ1687. I'll just check that. Oh, yes, I have it here on screen. What seems to be the problem?
Well, we've been overcharged. You see, the invoice is for 300 units, but our original order was for 260.
Let me see if I have that right. You asked for 260 units and we've billed you for 300, is that correct?
Yes, that's it.
Do you have a copy of the delivery note?
It must be somewhere around here. Let me see. Oh, hang on just a sec. Jean, pass that file over here. No, the one on your right. Yeah. Here it is. We definitely signed for 260.
Well, I'll need to confirm that with our records too, Mr. Bryson.
Please, call me Max.
Certainly, Max. As I say, I'll need to check the original purchase order and issue a new invoice if we have made a mistake. Can I take your number and call you back?
Yes, the number here is 020-9658-5518. When will you call me back, Val?
It shouldn't take long. I'll ring you later this morning.
OK, fine. Thank you. I'll be in the office until 1 o'clock.
1 p.m. OK, Max, I'll give you a call before then. Bye.
Unit 11. New Business. Track 32.
Hello?
Oh, hello. Could I speak to Max Bryson, please?
Speaking.
Hello, Max. This is Val Bailey calling from Dunbarry Jewellers. I'm phoning about the outstanding payments on 2 of our invoices.
Oh, right, yeah. Could you give me the invoice numbers?
Yes, sure. There's BJ1698, dated 28th of May, and BJ1712, dated 8th of June. I also sent you an email reminder on the 10th of July.
Yes, I'm sure.
As you know, our credit terms are 30 days, and payment is now way overdue on both of these bills.
Yeah, sure. I must apologise for the delay, Val. You know what it's like in a busy office. I'll authorise payment as soon as possible.
I understand. Could you tell me when that will be?
On the last banking day of the month.
I'm sorry, but we'd expect payment sooner. Given the situation, we'll have to consider withdrawing credit terms if these invoices aren't settled within 7 days.
Look, I'm sure we can sort this out, Val. I can make an exception and settle the invoice for the 28th of May this week, but the other invoice will be paid as part of our normal monthly payment procedures. Would that be acceptable?
So, are you saying that you can pay us this week?
I'm saying that we can pay you for the invoice from the 28th of May, yes.
I see. Well, we would prefer payment of the other outstanding invoice within 15 days.
Let me see. Fine. I think we can work with that.
OK, Max, I'll get back to you on the 30th of July if we haven't received both payments.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for calling, Val. Bye.
Unit 11. New Business. Track 33.
Well, to be honest, I'm happy with our current performance. We don't have the sales volumes we anticipated by this stage, but our profit margins are reasonably high. I'm inclined to let things, continue as they are.
Even if you're happy with your present situation, Anders, it's important to keep looking for ways to develop. If you don't, you risk giving your competitors the room to grow and taking market share from you, and that could seriously weaken your position.
Oh, well, yes, you're right.
First off, if you're looking to increase market share, it's important to make sure your business is in good shape.
Well, we've definitely improved our production processes since we started and managed to reduce costs, production and delivery times. We've also developed an excellent quality control system and our pricing is competitive.
OK, what about marketing?
Well, we thought if we had good products, they'd pretty much sell themselves.
I'm afraid life's not like that. The focus groups we've held have produced some interesting findings.
Oh, yeah?
Most people in your target markets have never heard of your products. And, well, those who had bought a home testing kit or said they would consider buying one generally felt that the instructions for use were too long and complicated.
Oh, well, yes, it's true, Emily. But we need to do something about that. I did wonder about putting short instruction videos on the website and maybe starting a customer blog.
Yeah. I think essentially you need publicity. A launch event is one thing that would have created greater impact and perhaps a bigger initial marketing push for your products, actually.
Okay, yeah.
Well, to be honest with you, neither of us has got any experience in the marketing field. We just left the sales team to get on with it.
Yeah, true.
I'm afraid we just hope for the best. But, yeah, I can see now we need someone to help us with that.
Yes. To increase your market share, you're going to have to find ways to get your customers to want to buy more. Or take customers from your competitors, or attract new customers, or preferably all three. And I think if we can get pharmacies and shops to display your products more prominently, that would help. I mean, on the counter rather than behind the counter, so people can help themselves.
That's an excellent idea.
Unit 11. New Business. Track 34.
Coming up next on today's programme, we have 3 special features for you. Our first report is about the work of the Hazlitt Foundation, which is dedicated to bringing innovations in health to global communities. The foundation, set up by billionaire businessman Paul Hazlitt and his wife Miriam, offers grants to organisations working in the field of medical technologies for developing countries, where easy-to-use, low-tech solutions are desperately needed. Our second report investigates the work of the Food and Drug Administration in the United States. Medical suppliers need FDA approval to sell medical products in the US, but, as our reporter discovered, the approval process can be complicated and drawn out. For our final report, we go to India, where the prevalence of type 2 diabetes is set to grow more rapidly than in any other nation. There are expected to be more than 60 million cases by 2017. So, more on these stories coming up after the break.
Unit 12. Project Management. Track 35.
What are the qualities of a good project manager?
I think you need to have very good interpersonal skills, to be very good at communicating, and to clarify people's roles in the team so they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. It's not like saying that the project manager gives the orders and the others follow. No, it's not like that. The project manager isn't necessarily the boss. Because the team members may come from different departments and the project manager may not be directly in charge of them. This is why he or she should discuss issues with all members of the team and then make decisions together with them, setting achievable goals, but without telling people what they have to do.
Really, to be a good project manager, you need to know how to delegate. You need to be able to juggle different issues all at the same time, be good at multitasking. But on the other hand, you're the person who can stand back and see the big picture, have a general overview of everything. And seeing the details and the complexities of issues is part of the job, so you understand exactly what people are doing and what they're talking about. But most of all, a project manager has got to know how to organise a team, direct them and motivate them so that they're 100% clear about the goals that you're aiming for.
Unit 12. Project Management. Track 36.
I think successful project managers work on successful projects. I think that's a good start. And successful projects, well, people say three things: on time, on budget, to performance. Some people say to scope or to quality, but I like to performance. I think those three things generally are understood to be a successful project. But there is something else, and that is success. What is success? And it's those three things, but usually something else as well. So if my project is a wedding, on time, on budget, to performance, they get married, that sounds like it's good enough. But it's not. And if you talk to people, then they will say something else, like, we'd like a nice day. We'd like some nice photographs or a video. We'd like everybody who should come to arrive. And therefore the project manager has the job of getting those other things done. If we had a power station, which is at the other end of the story, then on time, on budget, to performance, that sounds good. But there may be other things as well. So if you talk to the stakeholders, you will find things like, we'd like it to be safe. We'd like it to have minimum environmental impact. Something like that. We'd like it to last for 50 years. So the project manager needs to know what is success for themselves, for their team.
Unit 12. Project Management. Track 37.
What are some of the main issues for project managers today?
I think it's mainly about change. Projects are about change. Society wants change. I think the challenges really are no different in projects to what everybody is facing. Tight budgets, value for money requirements, needing things to be delivered on time. Maybe not just at the end of the project, but at the stages during the project. Things like that. The best use of technology. Technology appropriate to the project. It might be a heavy technology project, it might be a light one. And you use the technology to suit the people and their capabilities. There's an interest everywhere in sustainability, the environment and green issues. A lot of that is appearing in projects to make things better, to overcome some of the problems and damage that has occurred in the world. That's an important issue for people. And probably the biggest other area is just dealing with people. You can't project manage from behind a computer. You will have to come out and deal with people.
Unit 12. Project Management. Tracks 38 to 41. Extract 1.
So, you ready? Want to lead today?
Sure. Here we go.
Welcome to the conference centre. Please enter your password and hash sign. Please state your name.
Miriam Parker and Bill Anderson.
You are the first caller to this conference. Please wait while others join.
Why are we always the first ones to...
Suzanne Fossey has now joined the conference call.
Good afternoon, Suzanne. How are...
Georges Aubert has now joined the conference call.
Good afternoon, Georges.
Hello, Miriam. Are Bill and Susan there?
Yes, we're all here now. Thanks for joining.
Suzanne Fossey has left the conference call.
Extract 2.
I know we weren't due to discuss this today, but I think it's important to bring the issue up. We've been trying to get these trials off the ground for weeks now, but the people at the Albany plant can't tell us when we can start. I think we should look for an alternative location. Does anyone have any suggestions?
I can see that's a problem for you, but we have a lot to get through today. Let's come back to that question at the end of the meeting, if we have time. What's that noise?
Oh, well, sorry, I was just checking my email.
Extract 3.
As you can see from the report, the projected sales figures are looking very promising.
Eve, do we have a detailed breakdown by country?
Sorry, who was that speaking?
Me, Martha from the Phoenix office.
Thanks for your question, Martha. We haven't gone into that level of detail at this stage. What's that?
Sorry, guys. Forgot to turn my cell phone off.
Extract 4.
Right then, final item. As you all know, we had an outage in the production plant yesterday for 3 hours. Stan, can you bring us up to speed on that?
Well, everything's working fine again now.
Do we know what the problem was?
No, sorry, Lauren, not yet. There's obviously a glitch in the system, but I can't say how long it'll take to find it.
Abigail here. Sorry, I'm confused. A glitch?
Yeah, some sort of glitch in the software. We'll prep an incident report ASAP, and I'll CC you all in on it as soon as it's ready.
Okay, thanks, Stan. I think that's as far as we can get today. So any comments, anyone? Great. Thanks for the input, you guys.
BFN, everybody.
BFN?
Unit 12. Project Management. Track 42.
Hello, everybody. This is Rachel Stedman from Melbourne HQ. Today we'll be getting an update on the project to introduce our biscuits into the Chinese market. Let's start by taking the roll call.
Hi all, this is Dong Chang in Hong Kong speaking.
Esther Holmes from Marketing in Singapore here.
And Daniel Matthews from R&D has just joined us. I don't think you know him. Daniel?
Hi, guys. Sorry I'm a bit late. My last meeting overran.
Daniel, is that a British accent I hear?
Yes, that's right.
It must be very late, or is it early over there? Is it raining in England?
I'm in Melbourne, Esther.
Oh, sorry, I see.
Rachel here. Let's look at the items for discussion today. First is Esther's report.
Actually, I only got the report this morning and I haven't really had time to look at it.
Don't worry, Daniel. Esther will go over the main points now, and you can read it in detail later. Next on the agenda, Dongchen will talk about production capacity. To finish, I'll say something about consumer testing. We only have 45 minutes, so let's make a start. Esther?
Well, we've already done the first round of trials and ironed out a few issues, and I think we've come up with a much better biscuit.
Sorry, Esther. I didn't quite catch all that. Did you say that there were problems with the trials?
Well, no. In fact, we solved some of the earlier problems.
Daniel, again, I have a question. What were the issues initially, Esther?
Seems our biscuit was too sweet. The Chinese aren't used to the amount of sugar we use in our processed foods.
Do you know when...
Here, sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
No, please, after you.
Okay, Don Chen, what were you going to say?
When is the next round of trials due, Esther?
Next week, but I think Rachel will be saying more about that later.
Yes, that's right. We'll be talking about that at the end of our call, so can we concentrate for now on...
Unit 12. Project Management. Track 43.
Well, we wanted everyone to use our internet-based applications so that all the team members could collaborate and manage their part of the project more efficiently. It was a good idea in theory, but frankly, some people aren't as familiar with this software as others, and it's causing problems with communication. Some people in India and Denmark prefer to use email, telephone, and their own IT solutions, and even paper-based systems. It makes it difficult to keep track of who's doing what. And it's frustrating because work gets duplicated or missed, and that's causing more delays. But I'd say that our biggest obstacle isn't the technology, it's the way we work together. I think the team should be more task-driven and deadline-oriented. We should go for effective time management over other aspects such as quality. It's what I call a good enough approach so that we can get the work done on time. But the engineers seem to be focused on maintaining an excessively high quality, which is causing more delays.
Unit 12. Project Management. Track 44.
Teleconferences aren't easy. You see, first, there are the time differences. The people in Sydney are 4.5 hours ahead of us, so we can only communicate for half a day. It seems that the time for a teleconference is always set at the Australian team's convenience. And another thing, I personally don't like speaking in teleconferences. I don't like confrontation, and I feel like I'm confronting the client by discussing schedule slippage or other potential risks and problems. I can see it's creating misunderstandings and friction. And the feedback we get from the client is always so negative. I know that we're running behind schedule and that the costs have run over, especially with steel supply. But let's not forget, we've achieved a lot too in these 12 months. It's not a total disaster.
Unit 12. Project Management. Track 45.
Designing the civil infrastructure for a new port would have been enough of a challenge without the client revising the scope of the project. I mean, the whole layout had to change to accommodate the increased traffic that was expected. And the client wants the construction to be completed within the original time frame. There really hasn't been enough time allocated for quality design and revisions to the plans. My staff are up in arms about the schedule changes. Why should they be asked to give up their holidays? Postponing vacations was not an option, and I told the client that. Now they're blaming us, saying the redesigns were late. And working with a virtual team means there's no real sense of working towards a common goal. This team really suffers from poor communication. More teleconferences would help, so we can have regular progress reports.
Working Across Cultures 4. Managing an International Team. Track 46.
Within a few days of their arrival, the Japanese engineers were in a state of shock. They found their German collaborators to be rude, inconsiderate and lazy. The Germans interrupted during meetings and presentations and showed no interest in reaching consensus through the numerous pre-meeting meetings or very small group meetings that are an integral part of Japanese business culture. The Japanese were intensely uncomfortable with the German way of arguing everything out in front of everybody. For the Japanese, the potential for loss of face was just too big. They also disliked what they saw as the Germans' willingness to go home even when tasks were unfinished. As for the Germans, they were equally unhappy with the Japanese, who seemed very uncommunicative. They complained that even those who did speak didn't state their opinions clearly and frankly. By the time I was called in, the two sides were hardly speaking to each other. Communication had completely broken down. I did what I could, but it was too late. And sadly, the team was disbanded a few months later.
Working across cultures 4. Managing an international team. Track 47.
The two organisations should, from the outset, have been alive to the dangers that can arise when teams, or individuals from different cultures, are suddenly brought together in the workplace. There's plenty of evidence that cross-cultural differences are a major reason why so many of these cross-border joint ventures or other types of business agreements fail. Unfortunately, it's extremely rare for organisations to bother with the nitty-gritty details of how the people lower down the hierarchy or in the new project team will run meetings, make decisions, solve problems, manage staff and communicate. Yet all these standard operating procedures, what's known as SOPs, are carried out in lots of different ways by people from different cultures. The trouble is, each culture assumes their way is the normal one. Unexplained deviations from these norms are perceived as, well, deviant or even devious. People start to think, can we trust people from other countries who do things in this strange way? In the case of the German and Japanese companies, neither organisation bothered to give their people any understanding of the cultural attitudes and behaviour of the other side. No attempt was made to get the new team to discuss their differences and similarities. For instance, both the Japanese and Germans generally expect punctuality and clear, detailed agendas. The team should have had a chance to explore their similarities and differences and establish the best way to work together through a code of practice, or SOPs.
Working across cultures 4. Managing an international team. Track 48.
Different types of international teams will require a variety of solutions. Sometimes, for example, the answer can lie in providing a combination of intensive language training and cross-cultural training for key personnel, or a kick-off meeting for a new multinational team that helps team members learn about the cross-cultural differences and similarities of their new colleagues. So all team members get useful insights into how they can best work together. Renault, for example, decided very early on in its alliance with Nissan to invest massively in cross-cultural training, team building and consultancy for managers at all levels of the company. They wanted to be sure that both the French and Japanese staff had a good understanding of the cultural norms and expectations of their partners. And respect for cultural identity was critical in order to build trust and create a harmonious partnership. As a result, the Renault-Nissan alliance has been hugely successful. English is now the official language of the alliance and is used in meetings and communication. There is also a systematic exchange of people between companies and a strict culture of equality between partners. The alliance is also sensitive to cultural practices, for instance, vacations such as the 14th of July in France and Golden Week in Japan. And after over a decade of partnership, the companies are still learning about each other.
Copyright Pearson Education Limited, 2011.